Stillman and Company, 1025, 1063 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. Bridgestone Arena tonight, the Predators taking on the Winnipeg Jets. Right here, 7 o'clock, 1025, 1063 The Game. Ian is here today. We are, by the way, live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. We are presented by the Southern Bank of Tennessee. Ian is here today. Hello, Ian.
What up, what up?
Ian, you ruined my morning.
Yeah, sorry about that.
You ruined my morning. Ian texted me at like 10:59 p.m. last night, which, Ian, 4 or 5 years ago, if you had texted me at 10:59 p.m., you probably would have gotten a response very promptly.
Probably.
Unfortunately, I am not awake at 10:59 p.m. anymore. No, I go to bed around like 8:30, 9 o'clock. I went to bed after the Vandy game last night. But I woke up and I felt great. I had a good night's sleep last night, and I saw a text message from Ian. And it was the Adam Schefter tweet that Abdul Carter had a stress reaction in his foot. And Ian had 2 words in the text. Oh, no. And I woke up to the horrible news that Abdul Carter, the guy I want the Tennessee Titans to pick with the #1 overall pick in the draft, has a stress reaction in his foot. Drew Rosenhaus, his agent, said that he might have surgery and that he might participate in his pro day. They are currently consulting. They came out this morning and they said that he will not have the surgery and that he will participate in the pro day. This is borderline horrific news for the Tennessee Titans. And I sat up here on Tuesday after Mike Borgonzi met with the media and said all the things, talked about the free agent board and mirroring it to the pro board. And he talked about how they've been in at darkness and they leave at darkness because they're actually working hard, unlike the previous administration. And I heard all these things that kind of, again, reminded me of Floyd Reese's core values. When this program was Jared and the GM, and the GM was the greatest GM in the history of the Tennessee Titans. And I found comfort in the fact that Mike Borgonzi, it seemed, had a lot of the same core values with how he was trying to run the operation that Floyd Reese had when he ran the operation, or at least that Floyd Reese had when he did the show with us on a daily basis. And now we're going to test those core values. Because when it comes to a foot injury on a big player, an offensive or defensive lineman, that was a massive, massive red flag for the GM. That was something he absolutely hated. That was something I'll never forget. And I don't even remember how it came up. But there was talk one time about a foot injury it was something about a metatarsal injury. And I said, that's not that big of a deal. This is a tiny little bone in the foot. He said, oh, it's a big deal. So the first thing I'd do if I were the Titans is I would sit down with my medical team. I don't care about what Abdul Carter's agent and their medical team says. They have a vested interest in Abdul Carter. They do not have a vested interest in the Tennessee Titans. But I would have to sit down with my doctors who were at the combine, who were, I assume, poking and prodding Abdul Carter in this world-class physical that revealed the stress reaction. And I would need to know, how serious is this specific injury? How likely is a re-injury of this specific injury? How likely is it, if he doesn't have the surgery, that the stress reaction will eventually become a stress fracture? What will a foot injury do to his power coming off of the defensive line? Those questions would have to be answered. And again, the thing you can't do, some of these coaches, and this is the core value here, some of these coaches try to manipulate the doctors. Some of these general managers try to manipulate the doctors. Nick Saban holds it against the doctors that he had when he was the head coach in Miami because they would not clear Drew Brees. And Paul Kaharski says, oh, if they want to clear a guy, they'll clear a guy. Bad coaches and bad general managers will do that, but not the good ones. There are some coaches, there are some GMs that will say to the medical team, Are you sure we can't get that guy through? We'd really like to get that guy through. And the medical team says, okay, coach, we'll pass the physical. Okay, GM, we'll pass the physical. Is Mike Borgonzi going to be that guy, or is Mike Borgonzi going to stick to his core values? There was a very, very, very good coach, general manager, etc., that one time asked Floyd when he was GM, how do you get control of the doctors? How do you get control? And he said, you don't want control of the doctors. These guys are making millions of dollars. They'll sue your ass if you get control of the doctors. They find out you're fudging things. But again, not everybody was like the old man. Not everybody worked the same way. Not everybody cared about these little tiny details, which again, to me, are massive. And let me say this, and Ian, if you think I'm speaking out of school here, feel free to dispute this claim.
Okay.
I think Floyd would be scared to death, and I mean scared to death, of the Abdul Carter news today.
Yeah, I mean, he did not like the foot injuries.
He didn't like any injury.
But I do wonder how much the medical technology for this kind of thing has changed since the Javon Curse era.
I mean, I'll just say it to you like this. He didn't like anybody who was injured. We used to joke, he's an injurist. He wasn't sexist. He wasn't racist. But he definitely wasn't racist. His three quarterbacks as general manager were Warren Moon, Steve McNair, and Vince Young. But he was an injurist. If you were injured, he didn't like you. And I remember the day of the 2019 draft saying, well, what about if the Simmons kid from Mississippi State falls? And he was like, nope, not doing it. Again, this is where the core values come into play. You love a player. There's a guy like an Abdul Carter out there. This guy has the potential to be an all-pro pass rusher. Pass rusher is the second most important part of the team behind quarterback. So I can get an all-pro pass rusher, perhaps. I love him. He's got the size. He's got the production in college. Abdul Carter was great. He's got the technique. He's got the power off the line of scrimmage. He can get past these guys. He's got multiple moves that he can work a tackle to get into the quarterback. Again, the comparison, Micah Parsons. Micah Parsons is a great player. And then something like this comes up. You're already dealing with the shoulder injury here when it comes to Carter. Now you got to worry about this stress reaction in the foot. And there will be an agent out there, and there will be a media person out there, and there will be a doctor out there. There will be somebody out there that will tell you, oh, it'll be fine. It'll be fine. And then you tell yourself, you know what? It'll be fine. Remember the whole L'Jarius Sneed's knees issue we had last offseason, folks? Remember Caleb Farley's back? It'll be fine. It'll be fine. My core values for how to build a football team say no to foot injuries on pass rushers. Just like they said no when it came to L'Jarius Sneed's knees. Just like they said no because Corey Davis never worked out before the draft and had an injury. Just like they said no when it came to Caleb Farley. And yes, it will cost you a player at some point. There will be a guy who has an injury, and it is a bad injury, or it is a messy and complicated injury, and a team will take him off the draft board and somebody else will draft him and he'll have a nice career, and you'll say to yourself, man, what if we had taken the risk? But I just don't believe in drafting exceptions, especially when it comes to the number one overall pick in the draft. This is not a second round pick. This is not, hey, Abdul Carter's fallen in the draft. People thought he was going to be a first rounder. He's fallen down there. You're sitting there at 35. He's Abdul Carter. You have him rated as the 8th best player in the draft. He's got a medical shield on there, but we'll be okay. This is the first overall pick. If Mike Borgonzi and Chad Brinker blow this pick, they will get fired, period. And there's one other thing I always say this time of the year. Dumb guys stay dumb. Fat guys stay fat. And Ian?
Injured guys stay injured.
Injured guys stay injured. And right now, Abdul Carter has a shoulder injury and a foot injury. I had somebody text me this morning. They said, so are you out on Abdul Carter with the information that we have? And I say, out is too strong of a word. I can't sit here today and say, I'm out when the draft is in a month and a half, 2 months. I can't say that. But I'm very, 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 very concerned. And I think this is horrendous news for the Tennessee Titans. Because at the end of the day, no matter what partner wanted to come to them for a trade, no matter which quarterback they could have or couldn't, at the end of the day, I always knew, if you don't like the quarterbacks, if you don't like the trade options, you can take Abdul Carter. This is a number 1 pick. And now he's hurt. And not only is he hurt, but the injury is specifically the same type of injury that ruined Javon Curse's Hall of Fame career. Look at the first 3 years for Javon Curse. He was headed to Canton. So I'm not out on Abdul Carter, but my core values, I'm very, very, very nervous. That's how we're starting. 615-737-1025, which is our phone number if you want to weigh in. That's 615-737-1025. I have not checked the text line, but I'm going to guess there are a lot of, oh, Jared, it's just a stretch for you. It will be fine. Because I heard that this morning. And I think I know the difference between the people that are scared to death of this news and the people that say it'll be fine. On this station, we'll get to it next. Stillman and Company, 102.5 The Game.
that's fine. Whatever the doctors say, to me, it's like, is it really that important to work out at your pro day? I mean, I mean, it's great. People want to go see you, but the film is what it is. And I also understand the foot concern with bigger people, as Charles said. We talked earlier in the show. These injuries definitely are a concern with basketball players. The nature of that sport, the pounding on hard floor. I've seen careers end because stress fractures kept happening.
Yeah.
And yeah, certainly it's a bigger concern in the NFL with the bigger guys. I mean, Carter is not 6'4", 320. So it would not stop me. I mean, again, unless there's more information we don't have right now. And if there's an overall sense that this is just an injury-prone player. I don't know of injury history beyond what he has right now. Now, he does have 2, so you look into it. But based on the information I have now, this would not stop me if I thought he was the best player from drafting him at all.
That was Joe Rexrode this morning, so I woke up to the big news that Abdul Carter has a stress reaction in his foot. Again, I woke up to it because Ian sent me a text, and the text Ian sent me just said, "Oh, no." And Ryan Porth texted me about the Abdul Carter thing, and he was like, "Oh, my God, I think I'm going to be sick." He's like, "This is Javon Curse all over again." And so I flip on Robbie and Joe when I wake up. And I hear them talking about Harold Landry, and I hear them talking about the Jordan Schultz-Ian Rappaport fight, which we will talk about on this program today. I hear them talking about all this kind of different stuff, and I'm like, oh, hold on. They do the best and worst thing in sports. And I texted Robbie, and I said, the worst thing in sports, Abdul Carter's foot injury. And then I heard Joe, I heard Joe say, there's nothing newsworthy that has happened at the Combine. Excuse me? You have the number 1 pick. The guy that most people think you're going to pick, the guy you probably should pick, has a stress reaction in his foot, and you don't think that's a big deal? And then I started to think about the core values that I talked about earlier this week with Mike Borgonzi. The core values of building a football team that I was raised on, that Ian was raised on, that Ryan Porth was raised on. And again, the 2 people that texted me, and Ian, I could hear your reaction with the 2 words of "oh no" in the text.
Mm-hmm.
We all grew up. Ian, you were what, 30 when you started working with Floyd?
No, a little bit older than that.
So Ian was in his mid-30s. I was in my mid-20s. Porth was in his mid to late 20s. And we grew up in football school every day under the old man. And the old man was scared to death of injuries, especially first-round picks, especially foot injuries, especially for that position. And again, when it comes to the core values, here's the deal. If you really believe in them, then you have to move off a player if they don't check the boxes with which you believe in. It'll cost you Jeffrey Simmons because Floyd would have never drafted Jeffrey Simmons. And he's had a good career. But you also wouldn't have drafted Corey Davis, Caleb Farley, traded for Julio Jones, L'Jarius Sneed. And I'd say the good of Simmons does not outweigh the bad of what's happened with all the risks that have been taken. In New England, when they decided to use the 2nd-round pick on a tight end, Rob Gronkowski out of Arizona, Floyd Reese was against the move because of the back injuries that Gronk had that followed him throughout his career. Now, Gronk was still a great player, but he cautioned Belichick against it. Well, you would have missed out on Gronk, but I can live with that. And let's not kid ourselves. I did the math today. That same foot injury ruined Javon Curse's career. Javon Curse got hurt in the first game of the 2002 season against the Philadelphia Eagles with what was deemed a foot sprain. He had the surgery that they're talking about Abdul Carter having, and he was never the same player. When Javon Curse was drafted to the Titans for the first 3 years before the foot injury, he was on a Hall of Fame pace. 3 Pro Bowls, Defensive Rookie of the Year. He averaged 12 sacks a season and forced 15 fumbles over 3 years. After the broken foot, Curse never had a 10-sack season again. He went from a complete and total superstar. Again, if you average 12 sacks a year and you play for 10 years in the NFL, gold jacket, you're headed right to Canton. He went from a total superstar to a role-playing pass rusher. Again, teeny tiny little bone right there in the foot. Originally deemed a foot sprain. Had the little screw put in there. They said he'd be out 8 weeks, the same 8 weeks they're talking about if Abdul Carter were to have this surgery. And it ruined Javon Curse's career. So that's why I guess I'm not surprised. When Joe and Robbie are like, not a big deal with Carter, they say it's not a big deal. Rosenhaus says it's not a big deal. But for me, Ian, and Porth, that again, all grew up together in that same office for an hour every day before we did the show. And then we all did the show together for 4 hours for the three of us to be like, oh, holy crap. Oh, dear God. I get it. That's why there will be people out there that tell you this isn't a big deal. There will be people out there that will find an example and say, see, this guy had that and he's fine. Derrick Henry had this and Derrick Henry's still a good player. Yes, I got it. But would you use the first overall pick on Derrick Henry after he had that injury? That's what we're talking about here. We're not talking about would you bring Abdul Carter to the team. We're talking about would you use the first overall pick on Abdul Carter. Our phone lines are driven by WilsonCountyHyundai.com at 615-737-1025. If you want to weigh in, Jules is going to kick us off today. Jules, thank you for calling, and you go ahead.
Hey, Jared. Thanks for taking my call. Wanted to see what you think the Titans will now do with the first overall pick now that Carter has the foot injury. I know that the draft is 2 months away, but if the draft were tomorrow, would you still risk taking him first, or would you be looking at either quarterback? Thanks for taking my call.
Okay, so that's a very loaded question. And so I was talking to Derek about this off air because Derek's whole thing is like this. I mean, it's a big deal for him, but it's not a big deal for you because you haven't drafted Abdul Carter yet. So you could just transition and take another pass rusher. And he's not wrong about that. But here's the real problem. What about free agency? What about free agency? We talked yesterday. They're going to cut Harold Landry. They're going to cut Arden Key. That's $25 million. Well, if I know I'm taking Abdul Carter with the first overall pick, then I don't really have to worry when it comes to spending that money and reallocating that for a high-end pass rusher, because I can go get a couple of, minimum wage guys to come in here and rush the quarterback rotationally, knowing that Abdul Carter is going to be my main guy. Well, Abdul Carter's pro day is on March 28th. So if we're going to see if Abdul Carter's fine with all of this, we're going to see it March 28th after free agency. And again, you brought up what would you do today? I mean, look, I want to trade out of the pick. Many of you want to trade out of the pick. The New York Giants reportedly want to trade for the pick if they don't get Matthew Stafford, but we don't know if they're going to get Matthew Stafford. So I can't tell you today what they would do. I would say this. If we were in a meeting and we had decided based off the board, hey, we're going to take Abdul Carter, if we can't trade out of that first pick, I would be opening the discussion back up. Let's talk more about Travis Hunter now and how he would fit our football team. Let's talk about Cam Ward. I don't consider Sanders anywhere near Ward, so Ward would be the only quarterback worth talking about. Let's talk more about Cam Ward. Let's talk about Will Campbell. Are his arms going to be long enough? I hate it because I love Carter, but those are the conversations I think I'd have to have. Jack is up next on the program. Jack, thank you for calling and waiting. Go ahead.
Thank you, Stillman. I think after listening to your monologue for the last 10 or 15 minutes, I may know have taken different chances drafting behind a 3-14 season than he would coming off of a 14-3 season.
Hold on. Say that again because your phone cut out. So say it again.
Okay. Would Floyd take different chances drafting coming off 3-14 than he would 14-3?
Well, I can't answer that for him, but I would guess probably not. My guess is he probably would evaluate it the same.
Well, I'm with you. I'm not. They have horrible luck drafting people that were injured that they think they can fix that never work out.
I don't think it's, and Jack, I appreciate your call. I don't think it's them that has terrible luck drafting injured players. I think it's that they draft injured players. And again, injured guys stay injured. Caleb Farley, the day they drafted him, Chris Sanders, freaking Chris Sanders of all people, went crazy the day they drafted him. He's like, you can't draft this guy that's on one leg with no back. You can't draft that guy. And they were like, no, you'll see. Jeffrey Simmons had a torn ACL. Again, a torn ACL, that's like these pitchers in baseball that need Tommy John. That's not the end of the world. But a bad back for a corner who hasn't played football in 2 years? Like, is that bad luck or is that just stupidity? And I would say it was stupidity. At the time, I compared it to investing in cryptocurrency. Now, back to your question about would Floyd do it differently? My guess is if he was picking at the top of the draft, he would take less of a risk than if he was picking towards the end of the first round. But you all see it all the same way. I don't understand this. You guys see it the same way. You guys see Jeff Okudah, who was taken third overall in 2020, ahead of Justin Herbert, ahead of Justin Jefferson, ahead of these like really, really good players. You guys look at Jeff Okudah as a bust and Isaiah Wilson, who was taken 28th, and you think it's the same, and it's not. But that is why I'm kind of circling number one. I would want less risk when associated with the number one overall pick. 615-737-1025. More of your phones. Plus, Abdul Carter is supposedly going to be working out at his pro day. I talked to another former general manager, so this one is still alive. And I was kind of fascinated what they told me today about how they felt about this whole situation. We'll do that next. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game.
Look, as soon as we heard the news, what was the buzz around this place? Was this going to hurt his draft stock? Is this going to damage where he's going to be picked? Is this going to, immediately, any injury that pops up, people wonder, will that affect this young man? You said so many great words about how you have to treat injuries and how you have to have some patience with people. Apparently, we don't have to worry about patience, because if he's able to work out March 20th,
yeah,
then they think this thing is fast healing, no issues, the whole deal. And Kool-Aid had the same thing, where essentially he came back like a month later and did his pro day, I believe.
There you go.
Went on from there. So that is fantastic news for Abdul Carter, and fantastic news for all of us who like football and want to see this young man give his best opportunity.
Excellent player. There's no doubt about it. I mean, people are going to want to see him jam that foot in the ground, turn, move, and pivot, and swing around and do all the movement, all the athletic moves that you would expect to see from him. That's, what they say, seeing is believing. And that's pretty much how things work out.
There you go. That was Solomon Wilcots and Charles Davis this morning on NFL Radio. And for everybody out there that's like, oh, this is no big deal, it seems like a big deal to Charles and Solomon. I mean, they're talking about, hey, good news, he'll work out at his pro day, and people want to see him run the drills. They'll want to see him power off that foot. They'll see. So the doctors have apparently advised Abdul Carter against surgery, and he will participate in his March 28th pro day. Let me say this. That is massive, if true. Keyword. If true. Because as far as the pro days are concerned, and I heard Joe today saying, I don't understand why he'd work out his pro day. The tape is the tape. We used to do the Floyd Reese Draft Academy. If you did not work out at the combine, and you did not work out at the pro day, and you did not do a private workout for him, he would not draft you. If you did not run a 40 that he could validate, like that was authentically timed, he did not draft you. Period. Well, what if it was this great guy, and what if it was, doesn't matter. He would not draft you. That's what protects you from drafting Corey Davis. The Titans drafted Corey Davis, and I asked John Robinson, I'm like, how do you know how fast this guy is? He didn't run a 40. And he said, well, we can watch the tape, and the tape can tell us how fast he is. Sure. But I talked to a former general manager in the NFL who is not Floyd Reese, since obviously Floyd is no longer with us, which sucks, especially on a day like today. But I talked to a former NFL general manager, and I said, how much would Carter's foot injury scare you? And he said, and this is a former general manager who would take, and told me he would take, if he was general manager, he would take Abdul Carter with the number 1 overall pick. Says, I bet he rests his foot and he won't do his pro day. I said, well, hold on. Rosenhaus has come out and said he's going to do the pro day. The former general manager said, Drew lies a lot. He said, Drew lies a lot. Both surgeries the player should recover. If it's more of a Jones fracture, that could cause him to miss more time, in his opinion, than a Liz Frank, but he needs more info as to what actually is the stress reaction. Said, I need a little bit more info. I will say this about Carter. He's certainly tough enough to play through it. So a former NFL GM says, I bet he ends up not participating in the pro day. And I said, well, wait a minute, but Rosenhaus, and he said, yeah, Drew lies a lot, which I did, Ian, when I got that text message that was Drew lies a lot, I did laugh out loud.
Yeah. Well, I'm sure he's not the only agent, but.
No. And again, who is Drew Rosenhaus worried about? He's worried about his client. He's not worried about the Titans. That's not his job to worry about the Titans. But that's another thing to keep in mind. And again, I will say this. Like, again, somebody texted me and they said, are you out on Abdul Carter? And I'm not going to say today that I'm out on Abdul Carter. We need more information. He'll probably have to go back to Indianapolis for the combine rechecks. I will bring him in on a top 30 visit. My doctors will look at him again. Like, all those things will happen. But if he doesn't work out at the pro day and he doesn't do a private workout for the Titans, I'm out. I cannot draft somebody that does not work out at the pro day, that does not work out at the combine, and does not do a private workout. At that point, you're just taking their word. No, I'm good. Trust me. Okay. 615-737-1025. Let's go to Alex, who's up next here on the program. Alex, thank you for calling and waiting. Go ahead.
Hey guys, thanks for taking my call. I was just wondering, everybody's all real hyping up Abdul Carter, but you got Georgia defensive end Micah Williams, who's 6'5", 265 pounds, started 3 years under Kirby Smart, and you've seen what the Eagles have done with those Georgia defensive linemen and what they can do in that system. And then you also have Jalen Walker, Georgia linebacker, who has also been, you saw what he did against Texas. Just y'all's thoughts on why nobody's, hyping up those two guys and the system that they came from. And, they got the best defensive mind coach in the college football right now that was coaching them.
But for every guy that you're going to bring up Jalen Carter. I can bring up Travon Walker, right? Like it was a bad decision to take Travon Walker over Aiden Hutchinson, who is a very, very good pass rusher. For every good Georgia defender that you give me, like a Nolan Smith, I can turn around and give you Keely Ringo, who's a special teams player in the NFL. I mean, I remember when the Titans drafted DeAndre Walker. And it was like, hey, this guy, he might be so again, I would be very careful as far as what's called helmet scouting. Thank you for your call, Alex. I would be very careful as far as helmet scouting is concerned. Here's the thing with Micah Williams and with Jalen Walker. And I haven't studied them enough to know them like I know Abdul Carter, but I did not feel like the production was off the charts, especially every Georgia game that I watched. And I watched enough Georgia to where like you knew Jalen Carter every time you watched them play. I don't necessarily feel that way when it comes to Walker and Williams. And the other thing is, Micah Williams told everybody that he played at 60% this year, that he was hurt, dealing with an ankle injury that he aggravated in the Sugar Bowl. He took a few weeks off so the ankle could heal, and he'll work out at his pro day. And so he was injured this past year. So I'm already worried about his injuries. I'm already worried about Abdul Carter's injuries. Now you want me to take another guy who's also injured. You want me to take a worse guy who's injured. And his measurements came in an hour ago. 81st percentile, 39th percentile on his weight, 80th percentile on his arms, 79th percentile on his hands. Again, that's not elite. We're talking about the number one pick here. So I can trade back and consider the Georgia guys, but I don't think I can trade back, or I don't think I can sit there at one and say, okay, well, now I'm not going to take Carter because he's got the foot injury, so now I'll take one of the Georgia guys. And I'm certainly not taking someone because they went to Georgia, but I would say this. I do think there is something to taking guys that are really good in college football. As crazy as that sounds, like, yeah, Jared, you want to take the guys that are good in college football? Yeah, duh. That is the one thing that the Eagles have done that I would replicate, is I would look for the guys that are good college football players, and that would matter to me. 615-737-1025. If you want to weigh in, 615-737-1025. Add this to the list. Add it to the list if you want. But we do have to get down to the apparent showdown that has gone on at the Combine in Indianapolis. I'm surprised that it actually escalated to this. We'll get to it next. Stillman & Company, 105 The Game. Okay, Rap. We wake up this morning.
Oh, yeah.
Okay. We know that the whole world knows about everything that has taken place. What's the mindset like, and where do we go from here, bub?
Okay, so last night,
Stand more to your left.
Thank you. Good TV.
You're welcome.
And back up a little bit. Yeah, it looks like you're in a mugshot.
By the way, that's why you didn't get touched. Did you see that? You see that move back?
Yeah, that was good.
Good feet. Quick.
Shoulder roll in there too. All right, go ahead. Sorry.
So last night when it all broke, everyone in the world texted me, wanting to know details, and it was all out there. Florio basically wrote the whole thing, so there's not much to add.
Wow.
And then I woke up this morning, and everyone in the world has texted me.
Yeah. Well, we all are happy that you're both okay. We'd like to let that be known. Yeah. With that being said, what is next? Are you guys going to shake hands before you get out of town, or what do we think?
I mean,
That's a no. Wants to see him anymore.
Hard pass on the handshake.
My role in this,
He's going to the coffee bean and tea leaf from now on.
Yeah, absolutely. Not another penny.
There's actually a lot of great coffee brands at Dunkin'.
Hey, we're happy you're okay. We love you. Are you all right, man? You're going to be okay?
I'm okay.
We miss you. You had a great season. We were watching.
Miss you guys too.
Ladies and gentlemen, Rap Sheet.
Maybe body armor.
Yeah. Ian Rappaport on the Pat McAfee show today. If you're wondering what that all was about, yesterday we kind of talked about the drama a little bit. So Jordan Schultz is an insider. He's an insider for Fox, but he's not like a premium insider. Fair to say, Ian?
I guess so, yeah. I mean, he's probably tier 2.
Tier 2 insider. Kind of like Mike Garafolo's a tier 2 insider. Kind of like Diana Rossini has worked her way into tier 2 from tier 1. Dan Graziano, tier 2. Fowler's on the fringe. You know, Schefter, Rappaport, Jay Glazer, those guys are your tier 1 guys. So yesterday, Jordan Schultz put out there that Tom Brady recruited Matthew Stafford up to the ski lodge in Montana. Rappaport put out there that they just both happened to be there at the same time and there was no recruiting and it wasn't set up and blah, blah, blah. So they got into it on Twitter. Big freaking deal. I get into it with people on Twitter all the time. It's not a serious issue. But according to Pro Football Talk, per multiple sources who witnessed the interaction, Jordan Schultz of Fox and Ian Rappaport of NFL Media engaged in a verbal altercation on Wednesday afternoon at the Starbucks at the JW Marriott in Indianapolis. Schultz, we're told, accosted Rappaport. The fact that it happened at a Starbucks provides an interesting coincidence. Schultz is the son of former Starbucks CEO Howard Schultz. We're told that Rappaport was talking to an agent. Schultz approached Rappaport and said, "We need to talk," or specific words to that effect. Rappaport replied, we're told, Florio writes, "We don't need to talk." Schultz then made accusations about Rappaport, we're told. Rappaport, we're told, regards the accusations as unfounded. The two men were essentially face to face. "If you have anything to say to me, say it to my effing face," Schultz said, or specific words to that effect. Florio is a lawyer, by the way, and he's doing this because he's going out of his way to not get sued. "If this continues, we're going to have an effing problem." Schultz does not recall using profanity. Rappaport then asked Schultz to step back. "If it happens again, we're going to have an effing problem," Schultz said. "Now I'll step back." Rappaport told a witness that NFL security was informed of the exchange because it was regarded as a threat of physical violence. That from Mike Florio. Florio then wrote an article after that about how Ian Rappaport went on the McAfee show, and there was this little nugget in here that kind of shocked me in the Florio article that he said, here's the whole thing I wrote last night. "It's been our most viewed story of the week by far. And it's the rare nugget that rises above the lather, rinse, repeat of typical scouting combine scuttlebutt. As my wife asked last night, why does anyone care about this?" Florio writes, "The answer is simple and complex. They just do." So let me just tell you how I feel about this. I know both guys kind of on the periphery. Like, I know both guys. I have both guys' phone number. We've texted before, both guys and I. I would not call either a friend. I definitely like Schultz more than I like Rappaport. I find Rappaport to be so slimy. With Schultz, I've always tried to figure out, why is he doing this? Like, he doesn't have kind of the grinder mentality, like the obsession with always being on TV that these other guys that do it have. But I've never like truly found Schultz to be disingenuous, whereas I have found that with Rappaport time and time again. Here's the part of the story I can't get over. Rappaport going to NFL security. We've all had the confrontational moments, right? Somebody gets that, doesn't like something that we said. You know, I've had coworkers get really, really, really mad at me. It happens. Again, I'm not sure I've ever had a moment like that where another media person came up to me and finger in my face and got all mad about it. But it's like, I told the story, I think I told it last week. I told the story of the time Nick Cale, who used to do our morning show, got really, 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 really mad at me. And then when I got called into the office and I was asked about it, they were like, what were you thinking? As they played the audio, they were like, what were you thinking when this was going on? And I was like, all I was thinking was, how do I, at this point, not end up in the general manager's office having to talk about this? The fact that Rappaport went to NFL security is such a toady move. Like that, I cannot get over that with Rappaport. Rappaport acts like he's such a big deal. He walks around the Super Bowl with his freaking suits in his hand, like he's going out of his way to be seen by other people. He's always trying to, and then there's a tiny little confrontation at a Starbucks in front of everybody at the Starbucks that everybody goes to at the combine, and he goes to NFL security. Really? Now, let me just leave a little room for interpretation in this, which is that if I find out that Jordan Schultz said something just wildly off the wall, like, I'll kill you and your family, then I reserve the right to change my opinion on Rappaport going to NFL security. But as of right now, doesn't it seem like what Schultz said was, I'll kick your ass? Like, if you had to guess, was it, and Jordan Schultz, seriously, do you really care that much what Ian Rappaport says? Like, I could give a rat's ass what Ian Rappaport says about me. Could not care. So I find that to be a little sad, too. But I can't get over Rappaport going to league security. Like, the guys that league security, these are like former FBI agents. And Ian Rappaport, this reminds me on the TNT basketball pregame show where I want to say it was the Rockets and somebody, they got into it over Chris Paul and Blake Griffin, and the reporter said, and in fact, there was a police presence that was brought into the room, and Shaq and Chuck could not stop laughing at how ridiculous it was that some little NBA drama turned into police presence. Again, a little Twitter drama between two NFL insiders who nobody cares about. Again, nobody worries. I wonder how Ian Rappaport's doing today. So these two insiders get into this little squabble over nothing. Who's telling the truth? Who cares? They get into this squabble, and Ian Rappaport feels like he has to go to league security about it. What a freaking loser. What a toady loser. So keep that in mind the next time you guys tell me that, oh, Ian Rappaport said, yeah, keep that in mind. Guy who, again, will fake information, not lie about things, but will say things that aren't breaking news and position it like it is breaking news. Someone who gets details wrong all the time. Somebody who, again, so toady that there was a story that apparently Adam Schefter won the most points for breaking news during free agency one year, and Ian Rappaport challenged that report. And he went to league security. Oh, my goodness. And the only thing that surprises me about any of this, that like truly surprises me, is that Mike Florio says this has been the most viewed piece at Pro Football Talk. I am absolutely stunned by it. 615-737-1025, which is our phone number, 615-737-1025. Speaking of Florio, Ian Florio's got some tea.
Fun.
And it does involve the Titans. And it's pretty big. We'll do it next. Stillman & Company, 102.5 The Game. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville studios. We are at Bridgestone Arena, where the Predators take on the Winnipeg Jets tonight at 7 o'clock, right here on 102.5 The Game. We are presented by the Southern Bank of Tennessee. So I was just perusing Twitter today, and a buddy of mine hosts the morning show in Dallas on 105.3 The Fan. It's by the name of RJ Choppy. And I only know RJ because he's come on my Sirius XM show. He's a great guest, and he knows the Cowboys. And so I've gotten to know him. He went to UT. Good guy. He was one of the guys, if you remember this past year when Jerry Jones was getting pressed about, why didn't you do anything in the offseason? Why didn't you go spend in free agency? Why didn't you, make the Cowboys better? And Jerry got all crotchety and was, I don't need to sit up here and talk to you two guys. I can replace you if I want because I'm Jerry Jones. And that did not look good for Jerry. But RJ held his ground, good guy. So they had Mike Florio on their show at the Combine. And Mike Florio, again, doesn't want to just necessarily put this out there as a, cited source report, but definitely had heard some scuttlebutt surrounding the Dallas Cowboys and a potential trade that he's heard the Cowboys have reached out on. Ian, play the cut.
I did hear yesterday, and you hear all sorts of stuff, and I don't like to traffic in stuff I've heard because I don't know how accurate it is, but I did have somebody tell me that the Cowboys have talked to the Titans about moving up to number one. Now, I think a lot of teams talk about moving around, and I don't know if you guys have heard that. But, yeah, that's a jump, and I don't know what you would have to put into that or whether you'd have to put Micah Parsons into that package if it would go that way. But teams talk all the time. Like, I never get too moved by team talk. They talk all the time. When the report came out a couple of weeks ago, the Steelers called the Jaguars about Trevor Lawrence. I thought, well, yeah, they're looking for a starting quarterback. They're calling around to just see what the market will be. General managers talk to other general managers all the time. And you get, maybe you're thinking about moving to 5, so you want to see what it's going to take to get to number 1. So you can say to the team that's got number 5, this is what number 1 wants. So there's always different explanations for why a team would even do it, assuming it happened. But I did hear, haven't reported, haven't verified that there was a conversation.
Okay. Well, I understand that Florio didn't verify, doesn't want to report, doesn't want to make it a big deal. But I'd say that's pretty interesting. The Dallas Cowboys, whom hold the 11th overall pick in the draft, have reached out to the Tennessee Titans about acquiring the number 1 pick in the draft. Now, let me just say this. When I went onto the draft trade chart website to see what it would take Dallas in order to give up, to go all the way up to get the number 1, Dallas has a total draft capital of about 1,920. The Titans' number 1 overall pick carries a value of $3,000. So Dallas would have to get creative in order to be able to make a move from 11 to 1. So let's talk about what it would take in order to get Dallas to trade the number 1 pick to the Titans. Or excuse me, to trade Dallas to the Titans to trade the number 1 pick to Dallas. And again, I don't know what this is about. Maybe the Cowboys reached out just kicking the tires on something else, but figured they'd start the conversation there. Maybe the Cowboys are looking to, like Florio said, see what it'll take to get to number 5. So they want to talk to number 1 and work their way backwards. I don't know. According to the trade chart, here's what Dallas would have to give up in order for this to be a reasonable trade. They'd have to give up 11, 43 in the second round, 76 in the third round, their first rounder next year, their second rounder next year, and their first rounder the year after that. So 3 first-round picks, 2 second-round picks, and a third-round pick. Well, you're not getting that. I mean, that's not even what John Robinson got to move all the way back to 15 in a much better draft. Again, I don't think that's what Robinson got. I know he got 2 firsts, and in this case, you'd get 3 firsts. And I want to say he got 3 seconds in order to move in like a third or something like that. But here's the deal I would make. And again, I need to know why Jerry Jones is wanting to move up to number 1. The deal I would do, Micah Parsons, number 11, number 43, and next year's second. So I would give up again. The trade chart says that it's 3 first rounders, and I'm only getting 1 first rounder, but I'm getting Micah. And I would value Micah at about 2 first rounders. And I'm getting 2 second rounders. That's the deal I'd make. And you may say that's crazy. You may say that's way too much. You may say that's not enough. I don't know. The way I view it is this. If I make that trade, now I have to pay Micah Parsons. But quite frankly, it would be an honor to pay Micah Parsons. I mean, the way I view it is I'm getting rid of Harold Landry. I'm getting rid of Arden Key. That frees up $25 million in cash. I mean, how much is Micah going to be looking for? $30 million a year? So, okay, done. There you go. Enjoy, Micah. And I can still, in what's a deep edge rusher class, draft another edge rusher. I mean, to me, I don't think Jerry would have any interest in that. But I'm kind of fascinated by why, if this is legit, and if the Dallas Cowboys are actually interested in moving up to the number 1 pick, I'm trying to figure out why Jerry Jones would do that. The Cowboys don't like to spend money. The Cowboys like to draft, and they like to draft good players, and they're very good at it. For whatever it's worth, Will McClay, the guy that really runs the draft in Dallas, that guy is a genius. And he makes Jerry and Steven look good with all these out of their rear end picks they make, like Deron Bland in the 6th round. But again, I'm trying to figure out, why would Jerry Jones want to move up to the 1st pick in the draft? Jerry's paying his quarterback $60 million a year. Would he really give him $60 million a year and then turn around and mortgage the farm to go get Cam Ward? That doesn't make sense. So I'd have to say that option's out. Would he be trying to trade up to number 1 and include Micah Parsons in the deal so that he could try to go get the next Micah Parsons and Abdul Carter? Kind of similar to what the Titans tried to do by trading for Traylon Burks, trying to get the next A.J. Brown. That blew up in their face. Again, if I'm Dallas, don't you just pay Micah Parsons and then use the 11th overall pick on a player you want? Could Jerry want Travis Hunter? I mean, they're paying Diggs at corner a lot of money. They have Deron Bland at the other corner. They're paying CeeDee Lamb a lot of money at wide receiver. He's their number 1 guy. What's the juice for Jerry Jones here? And the thing I've realized about this sport, and especially this time of year and these teams, is there's kind of every now and then a team that we look at and we say, they've got a quarterback and they're happy. That's a happy marriage. And then all of a sudden, instead of hearing that they're headed for divorce, you just hear that they got divorced. It's like draft night when the Chiefs traded for Mahomes, and it was like, whoa, 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 they got Alex Smith. I didn't see that coming. What would Jerry Jones really want out of the number 1 pick? That's why I have a hard time kind of taking this rumor seriously. Look, Florio is a legit insider. We talked earlier today about tier 1 versus tier 2 insiders. Florio is a tier 1 insider. And he says the Cowboys talked to the Titans about the number 1 overall pick. So I told you what it would take. It would take Micah Parsons, a 1st and 2 seconds in order to do the deal. The trade chart says it would take 3 first rounders, 2 second rounders, and a 3rd rounder. But I just don't understand what the Cowboys get out of that. Unless they see something that I don't. And the one thing I'll say about Dallas, they do draft well. 615-737-1025 is the phone number, 615-737-1025. Here's the key to trading the pick. And this is where this Florio Cowboy rumor does come into play. And we'll get to that next. 615-737-1025 and your phones on that latest rumor. And do we buy this at all? By the way, do we buy that Dallas would actually have interest in trading up to the number 1 pick? Stillman and Company, 1025, 1063 The Game.
I think what's interesting for Tennessee is that they might be able to drum up a bidding war between Cleveland and the Giants. And not that either one of them would for sure make that move up there, but just because, you'll hear this often. I think DJ may have said it just a few minutes ago as well. Like, I think the league on average views Cam Ward as a higher rated prospect than Shedeur Sanders. But if the Giants say, hey, listen, we're bigger Shedeur Sanders guys than Cam Ward guys, or bigger Cam Ward guys than Shedeur Sanders guys, and Cleveland might see it the same way, then you're not going to settle, right? Like, teams view quarterbacks, it's like house hunting. Like, you got different preferences than other people do, what you actually want in that player. So Tennessee might be able to say, hey, if we think Cleveland and New York are both, they would both take Cam Ward without a problem, but would bypass Shedeur Sanders, might be able to create some leverage there and potentially move down. The difference that Tennessee has in those guys, they both, all three teams need a quarterback, but first-year GM, second-year head coach and Brian Callahan, they don't need to solve the quarterback situation right now to make sure that they're still going in 2026 and beyond. And while Will Levis, there's more questions than answers so far, still young enough, and it was a highly drafted enough player, you could probably talk yourself into another year of trying to develop him a little bit further.
There you go. That was Field Yates. And by the way, the one thing Field is right about with that is the Titans have a first-year general manager, and he's not on the hot seat to win and solve quarterback today. Callahan might be. But again, Callahan's not calling the shots. So we have the rumors that the Cowboys have reached out to the Titans about the number 1 pick. But again, Field is talking about, hey, a bidding war. Cleveland, the Giants, get it drummed up, get a little something. The key to all of this is Matthew Stafford and their pursuit in New York of Matthew Stafford. So with Abdul Carter less appealing, I do think I'm okay with maybe moving back to 6 with the Raiders or 7 with Jets. But in order to do so, you would need a serious haul. You wouldn't need as big of a haul to move back to number 3, where you could still get Travis Hunter. You could still get, again, it's easier to take on Abdul Carter with his injury if you've got next year's first and you've got a third as well to add to it. It would be easier to do that. When it comes to the Raiders or the Jets, to move, this is what the trade chart says, to move for the Raiders, they would have to give you 6, 37, 68, next year's first, and 73. And you throw back a 4th and a 5th. For the Jets, again, this is what the trade chart says, 7, 42, 92, next year's first, next year's second, and 27's first. They're not going to trade 3 first-round draft picks for the number 1 pick. So if the Giants get Stafford, then the Browns are going to take Cam Ward, unless 6 or 7 moves up to 1, and 6 and 7 won't pay the price to move up to number 1. And now we're talking about Tetrolia McMillan or whatever, the wide receiver out of Arizona. Now we're talking about Jalen Walker, the pass rusher out of Georgia. And we're not talking about Travis Hunter. We're not talking about Abdul Carter anymore. But the Jets aren't going to pay 3 first-round draft choices to move up for Cam Ward. Are they? So the Giants are the team I keep circling. The Giants are the team I keep pointing at. I'm like, do not get Matthew Stafford. You do not want the Giants to get Matthew Stafford. And on the Cowboy front, let me just say this. Again, I have no idea if Mike Florio's report that the Cowboys have reached out to the Titans about the number 1 pick. I have no idea if that's true or not. I have no idea if it was serious. Like, did the Cowboys reach out because they were interested, or were the Cowboys just kicking tires on something else? And I have no idea what the intent is, because I also have no idea if it actually happened. But if it did, let me tell you who I would tell that reached out about number 1. The Giants. I would say, hey, Giants, are you listening? The Cowboys reached out for the number 1 pick. Hey, Giants, are you listening? Adam Schefter said, Ian, did Schefter say that he guarantees the Browns will take Cam Ward, or that he guarantees they'll take a quarterback?
No guarantee. He said the most sure thing he feels about right now.
He said he's very confident.
Something like that. If I had to pick one thing, he said the most sure thing I feel about right now is the Browns taking quarterback number 2.
Okay, they're taking a quarterback. Did you hear that, Giants? Cowboys want to get the Cowboys in your division. You already got to deal with Jaden Daniels. You already got to deal with Howie Roseman and the Eagles. The Cowboys have called. Who's your quarterback going to be? And if they have Matthew Stafford, they'll just brush it off and not care. So I am rooting like hell that they do not end up with Matthew Stafford for this exact reason. They're the perfect trade partner, especially if they don't get Stafford, because they are desperate. I almost wonder, like Jonah Jackson, the guard that the Rams took, was a terrible mistake by the Rams to sign this guy in free agency. They've given him permission to seek a trade. If anybody would have interest, we've already benched the guy. He's no good. He's making a lot of money, but he can go search out a trade. I almost wonder, if you're the Titans, do you take on that player from the Rams and get a sixth back and say, here, the money you just saved by dumping that mistake you made, give that to Matthew Stafford so he does not end up with the Giants. Now that would be some chess. 615-737-1025. Let's go to Brad, who's up next on the Cowboys, trading to number 1. Brad, thank you for calling. Go ahead.
Hey, Jared, I know you like to connect dots, and I don't think these are that far apart or difficult to connect. Jerry Jones, we know, has a great affinity for Deion Sanders, and nobody knows Travis Hunter better than Deion Sanders. My personal opinion is we do not give enough respect to the athlete and football player that Travis Hunter is. And if Deion has told Jerry that Travis is the next Deion, Jerry doesn't do things that make a ton of sense to the rest of us, but he might mortgage the farm to get the next Deion. What do you think?
You know, I try to really be careful when it comes to Jerry Jones because, to your point, Jerry is a little unpredictable. And I do think there is a mutual friendship between Jerry Jones and Deion Sanders. Now, Jerry Jones is never going to hire Deion Sanders to be the coach, because Deion Sanders would take too much attention away from Jerry Jones, which is what Jerry Jones, we all know, truly craves, is being the star of the Cowboys. But I do think that Jerry did like Deion. I think they like each other. Maybe Deion did say that to Jerry. Maybe Deion did say, hey, you've got to get Travis Hunter. And maybe Jerry went in there. Maybe Jerry watches college football and Jerry sees Travis Hunter playing both sides of the ball, wins the Heisman Trophy, walks in and says, I want him. I want him. You know, Zach Martin retired last week, and Zach Martin made it to 9 Pro Bowls and was named a 7-time first-team All-Pro. That ties John Hanna, who is considered to be the greatest guard in the history of the NFL in terms of Pro Bowls and All-Pros. The story is, on the night of the 2014 draft, Jerry had the card turned in. Jerry Jones was going to draft Johnny Manziel, and Stephen Jones begged him not to do it. And so Jerry relented, and he drafted Zach Martin. And you would think that Jerry would thank Stephen for that decision every day over the last 10 years, given the fact that, again, Zach Martin made 9 Pro Bowls and Johnny Manziel probably didn't even play in 9 games. But apparently Jerry was very upset with Stephen. And there was something along the lines of, and I don't have the quote in front of me, but something along the lines of, son, you don't get to do the things that I've done in life playing it safe. And so I don't see Jerry doing this very often, but every now and then there's a player and he's like, I want him. I want him. And then he does something stupid and trades for him. Trey Lance, stupid, traded for him. Amari Cooper, again, Jerry's cheap. He knew Amari Cooper was going to have him over a barrel. He didn't care. I want him. So maybe Travis Hunter, that one makes sense. The text line is going crazy about Shedeur. You know, one texter says he wants Shedeur Sanders so he can fire Brian Schottenheimer and hire Deion. He's not hiring Deion. But I think Hunter makes more sense as far as Jerry's obsessions would be concerned than anybody else. He's the Heisman Trophy winner. He plays both sides of the ball. He's got Deion's stamp of approval. I could see Jerry sitting there saying, can he play receiver? Oh, Dad, he can be a star. Can he play corner? Oh, Dad, he's already a star. I want him. want him. And then they call the Titans and say, what would it take to get him? I'm not ruling it out. I've ruled out a lot of stupid things in my life. Probably ruled out some more sensible things than that. But with Jerry, I am not. The one I don't buy is Shedeur. I don't think Jerry Jones is interested in doing this for Shedeur Sanders. 615-737-1025. More your phone, 615-737-1025 as we are live at Bridgestone Arena. We continue along, 615-737-1025. By the way, all of our Combine talk is presented by the New Cumberland and by Boom Boss Pizza. The New Cumberland, Nashville's resort-style community overlooking downtown on the Cumberland River, and by Boom Boss. Go try their award-winning pizzas at one of their locations in East Nashville, Spring Hill, and Murfreesboro. Boom Boss Pizza and Watch Bar. Eat, drink, watch.
I did hear yesterday, and you hear all sorts of stuff, and I don't like to traffic in stuff I've heard because I don't know how accurate it is, but I did have somebody tell me that the Cowboys have talked to the Titans about moving up to number 1. Now, I think a lot of teams talk about moving around, and I don't know if you guys have heard that, but yeah, that's a jump, and I don't know what you would have to put into that or whether you'd have to put Micah Parsons into that package if it would go that way, but teams talk all the time. Like, I never get too moved by team talk to, like, they talk all the time. When the report came out a couple of weeks ago, the Steelers called the Jaguars about Trevor Lawrence. I thought, well, yeah, they're looking for a starting quarterback. They're calling around to just see what the market will be. General managers talk to other general managers all the time. And you get, maybe you're thinking about moving to 5. So you want to see what it's going to take to get to number 1. So you can say to the team that's got number 5, this is what number 1 wants. So there's always different explanations for why a team would even do it, assuming it happened. But I did hear, haven't reported, haven't verified that there was a conversation.
Do we think it's legit? Ian, do we think it's legit? Do we think the Cowboys, that was Florio on 105.3 The Fan in Dallas. Do we think the Dallas Cowboys have reached out to the Tennessee Titans about the number 1 pick? Yes or no?
I'd like to think so, but I kind of think no.
So you think Florio just heard it and is just gossiping?
Pretty much.
I think I agree. And I like Florio. Like, I do. Like, we had him on at the Super Bowl. He and I were chatting, like, before he came on the show and whatever. And I told Florio, I was like, just so you know, like, this is not a Titan Homer show. And he was like, oh, sometimes it's more fun. Sometimes it's more fun when I go on the Homer shows. I was like, well, you're not going on a Homer show here. I like Florio. Again, Florio's like, I don't feel comfortable enough to report it, but here's the gossip. I think I'm with Ian. I'm not sure I believe this. And again, there's not one player that stands out to me that I could see Jerry Jones being like, let's do something crazy for him. I just can't. It's Hunter. He's already got a number 1 receiver. He's got a number 1 corner. Ward, Sanders, he's already got a quarterback. He's paying him $60 million. And I believe Dak has a no-trade clause. Carter, the guy they say he can be, is Parsons. He's already got him. So that one, I think not sure I totally believe. But let's get to your phones, as promised. 615-737-1025. Jeff says, would Jerry trade Dak for number 1 overall? Perhaps Jerry is tired of Dak. Ryan says, would Dak to the Titans be a part of a deal for number 1? Josh says, maybe he wants to trade Dak to the Titans so he can be able to draft Shedeur Sanders. So I believe Dak has a no-trade clause. In fact, I believe Dak Prescott has the best contract in the history of the NFL. And the only reason he has the best contract in the history of the NFL is because his agents signed an incredible contract the last time. In 2021, when Dak Prescott signed his first extension with the Cowboys, they had the Cowboys over a barrel. And so they got everything from Jerry Jones.
Yeah, full no trade and no tag clause.
And so when he had the no tag that Ian's referring to in the last deal, that meant that before the season, they had to give Dak $60 million because they couldn't franchise tag him. And if he got out there into free agency, think about how much we're talking about Sam Darnold right now. Imagine if Dak Prescott was out there. Think about how much people are talking about Matthew Stafford. You still have to trade for Matthew Stafford. That's how much people would be talking about Dak Prescott. Every single one of these teams. So the bidding then gets to what? 60, 65 million, 62 million, 68 million for Dak Prescott? You're Amy Adams Strunk. You just fired your second general manager and you fired Mike Vrabel and everybody's pointing a finger at you and everything else. You're trying to sell tickets into a new stadium. Dak Prescott would be a perfect person to sign to play quarterback, draft him Travis Hunter, draft him Will Campbell, whatever. So at the same time, I just don't think that Dak is a part of this. One texter says the Titans would have to pay Micah Parsons. Thus, you would need more back from Dallas. So when it comes to acquiring a player that you have to pay, the rule of thumb is that that player is worth 2 first-round picks, but you're only trading 1 first-round pick because the second pick is the one that you are using the contract on. Does that make any sense? So like A.J. Brown netted you 1 first-round pick because the way the Eagles view it is we trade 1 first-round pick for the player, and then the second first-round pick that you would get, we're paying him the contract. I'm not sure that it's total apples to apples, but that is what some people do say. Again, in a draft where there's not a huge superstar sitting out there, I'm not sure you can ask for more than Micah Parsons, 11, which is a first rounder, and 2 seconds. If you want to ask for an extra third in there, you can. I mean, I'd be asking for the moon if I were the Titans, but that's what I'd be willing to do. Micah, and then I'd be happy to pay him. Jerry doesn't want to pay him. I'd be happy to pay him. Jerry Jones, cheap ass. That's another reason why I have a hard time believing he actually wants to make this trade. You've got to pay the number 1 pick like $30 million straight up. Does Jerry want to do that?
Still cheaper than a big contract maybe for some players, right?
That is true. That is true. Ryan says, if the injury to Abdul Carter is as minor as it seems, I'm happy about it. That should reinforce teams' belief that the Titans will go quarterback at number 1, increasing trade offers, trade with the Giants. So them and Cleveland will take quarterbacks, and the Titans can get Abdul Carter at 3+ picks. Oh, happy day. Provided it's a minor injury. If it is serious, then crap. Yeah, I mean, great. If the injury means nothing, good news for us. Yeah. Exactly. That's the problem here, is that we don't know when it comes to the Abdul Carter injury how serious it is or it is not. Mike says, remember a month ago when it came out of nowhere that Jerry was talking to Deion Sanders about the Dallas Cowboys job, and it was pretty much just to look like he was doing some due diligence. Now Deion's son is dropping in some mock drafts. Sounds to me like Jerry is doing a solid and getting some rumors out there. Except that, again, this is the lightest rumor that we've heard. It's Florio going on the radio in Dallas saying, I don't really have enough to report this because teams talk to each other all the time, but I heard the Cowboys reached out to the Titans for the number 1 pick. So it's not like they're trying to get it out there. If they're trying to get it out there, everybody would know. Years ago, I remember the Texans were in a bind at quarterback, kind of similar to where the Giants are right now. The Texans were in a bind. They had spent on Brock Osweiler, and that had busted, and they needed a quarterback, and everyone considered the 2017 class to be a bad class as far as quarterbacks were concerned, and Tony Romo was kind of the Sam Darnold of the group. He was supposed to be the prized free agent, but then Tony Romo decided to go to CBS, but there was some talk out there that maybe the Chargers would move off of Phillip Rivers, or maybe the Saints would be ready to move off of Drew Brees. And I remember talking to Floyd about that, saying that if I was on the phone and I was trying to get Drew Brees, Floyd said something like, I'd want 3 first-round picks. I'm like, 3 first? No. He said, what's your other option? You owe me 3 first-round picks. What's your other option? I said, well, I'll go call San Diego about Phillip Rivers. He said, if you call San Diego about Phillip Rivers, the second you get off the phone, I'm calling ESPN saying, I heard Houston's calling San Diego. So we haven't even heard that as far as this rumor mill is concerned. 615-737-1025 is the phone number. Okay, there is a story that is a big deal for one NFL media ecosystem, and it's not ours, but it is so wild that this particular thing is happening with this particular person, and you all understand it better than anybody else. We'll get to that next. Stillman & Company, 102.5 The Game.
Who has final say when it comes to making personnel decisions?
Well, I wouldn't be here, and I wouldn't have wanted to be the head coach here if I wasn't comfortable in my impact on the roster. So we want to, continue to have great conversations with the personnel staff, with me, with Stretch, with coaching. We're all just trying to find ways to bring the right players in here, whether that's first part of free agency, middle of free agency like we talked about, or the draft, or there's going to be players that get released that we'll have to pivot to and have options. So, again, we need to strengthen the roster. We understand that. And again, have some really good conversations about how we get there.
Okay, that was Mike Vrabel on who has final say of the Patriots roster. And I have heard so many questions over the years about Mike Vrabel and who has final say and who doesn't, that at this point in time, anytime Vrabel's asked that, when Vrabel starts going into his Vrabelese, I now just hear the teacher from Charlie Brown, right? Like, Ian, play that cut again, start to finish here.
Who has final say when it comes to making personnel decisions?
Well,
Stop.
I wouldn't be here, and I wouldn't have wanted to.
Like, as soon as Vrabel doesn't say me or him, it's like, oh, okay, here comes some freaking Vrabel just, oh yeah, here's a Vrabelese. I wouldn't be here if I didn't think that I would feel comfortable about the players I'd have on the roster. Meanwhile, Elliot Wolf, who is the vice president of player personnel for the New England Patriots, the other guy in the equation, the Rand Carthon, if you will, in this scenario, was asked the other day, who has final say on the roster? Here's what Elliot Wolf said.
Ultimately, it's my final say, but again, Mike said it yesterday. Mike wouldn't have taken this job. And this is something we talked about in the interview process. Mike wouldn't have taken this job if we weren't comfortable with each other. There's not going to be Mike's guys or Elliot's guys. They're going to be Patriot guys. And we're excited to share the vision, to work together to improve the roster.
Okay. So Elliot Wolf says he has final say, but hey, there's not going to be any issues here. This is going to work out. This is Mike and I are going to be aligned. And Mike and I, there's not going to be Mike's guys. There's not going to be my guys. There's not going to be. Ian, have you heard this one before?
I suppose so.
I mean, have we seen this story before? Karen Garigian for MassLive.com, which I believe is one of those papers up there, like the Boston Globe, maybe Boston Herald, maybe. I don't know. Karen Garigian, what does Elliot Wolf's final say really mean for the Patriots? Quote, one way to describe Elliot Wolf's response to reporters about whether he continues to have final say over the Patriots roster. A verbal tap dance. During his first media session since training camp last year, it sure sounded like Wolf couldn't decide what to say about his level of control or the best way to say it. He did say he had final say, but then he sort of didn't. He said he did, but Mike Vrabel was ultimately involved. Karen Garigian basically turns later and says, the reality, the delineation of power is clear and present. It's Vrabel, then the rest. So this guy says, I have power, and everybody interprets that as Vrabel has power. Again, have we seen this before? So Mike Vrabel now finds himself in a power struggle. He has been on the job for 1 month. And Mike Vrabel already finds himself in a power struggle with somebody who says he has final say, but who most people think does not, and who most people think Vrabel's going to run right over. Did Robert Kraft not do any research before he hired Mike Vrabel? Was it as simple as Vrabel went into Foxborough 5 years ago, beat him in a playoff game, and so because of that, Robert Kraft's like, well, I mean, he was a great player for us, and I just think he's a great coach. And that he didn't do any research whatsoever to figure out that what happened here in Tennessee was that Mike Vrabel was put into a shotgun marriage with an executive that he did not hire, an executive that he did not approve of, and the entire year, everybody spent every single day trying to figure out who was actually in charge, and Mike Vrabel every single day made things worse. Like from start to finish, Rand Carthon got the job. People wanted to know who had final say. They would not answer the question. In the middle of the year, Will Levis, it's announced by Ian Rappaport, is going to be the starting quarterback. Vrabel gets so pissed about it. I didn't say that. Which then leads to this whole belief that Rand and Vrabel don't like each other. TD goes, sits down with them. They look at each other. We love each other. TD writes it. Next thing you know, Vrabel's being asked questions at the podium about, do you want to stay here? And he's like, yeah. I mean, if we can do things the right way, if we can win, and Chad and A-Rob and Rand, and I mean, again, then Vrabel gets fired and all we hear is how much they loved each other. It's the exact same thing happening. TD said at the Senior Bowl, he went to a wing restaurant, went into the restaurant and saw Vrabel with Stretch and Ryan Cowden. Where was Elliott Wolf? Nowhere to be seen. And I said this when Caroline was trying to figure out who has final say, Vrabel or Rand. And I said, there is no final say. I said, Amy has told them you two will work together. And they said, yes, ma'am. Because no one wanted to upset the owner. And then they siloed off. Vrabel did things his way. Rand did things his way. And if they won, what you would have heard is, oh, no, Coach does a great job coaching these players. Oh, no, Rand does a great job picking these players. But if they lose, what you're going to hear is, well, Vrabel wanted that guy. No, Rand wanted that guy. And I remember when everybody here heard the same stuff Vrabel's saying right now. And everybody here said, no, it'll work. They're aligned. And it was a freaking train wreck. Again, I have to wonder, Robert Kraft, and I understand Amy Adams Strunk is not exactly the Rooney family when it comes to reputation as far as ownership is concerned. But did Robert Kraft not even bother to pick up the phone to ask what happened here? Like when Robert Kraft decided that he was going to keep Elliott Wolf in place and not make Ryan Cowden the de facto GM puppet for Vrabel, did he think Vrabel was going to sit there and accept it and go to work every day and say, good morning, Elliott? Boy, what are we working on? Did he not think that Vrabel was going to run him over? Did he not think that Vrabel was going to run him out of there? That's exactly what happened here. Again, I almost wonder if Robert Kraft just knows Mike Vrabel as a player and said, that's good enough for me. Well, Mike always worked well with others when he was on the team. Yeah, because he couldn't do what Tom Brady could do. Vrabel thinks he can be GM. But you won't let Vrabel be GM for whatever reason. And then Elliott Wolf says, I have final say, but it's like he has final say. And now here's an article that says he doesn't have final say. Boy, that'll work well. And let me give Elliott Wolf just a little bit of advice here, if I may. Dude, do not back down to Vrabel. If you do this game of, I have final say, but Mike Vrabel will have no respect for you, and he will walk all over you every opportunity he gets. If you actually have final say, if Robert Kraft said, Elliott, you're in charge of our football operation, then you need to make sure Mike Vrabel knows it. And you need to make sure Mike Vrabel knows it right away. Because the longer you let this stuff fester, the more opportunity Vrabel will have to exploit it. We all saw it here. Boy, this is going to end fabulously. Oh, I love it. 615-737-1025. TD is at the Combine in Indianapolis. He joins us for the TD Power Hour next. Stillman and Company, 1025 The Game. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville Studios, Bridgestone Arena, Preds and Jets tonight. We are presented by the Southern Bank of Tennessee, and live in Indianapolis is the man. He is currently at Lucas Oil Stadium right now. Teron Davenport joins us for the TD Power Hour, and it should be noted that our combine coverage is presented by the New Cumberland and by Boombas, which we're very, very excited about. TD, how are you? How is Indianapolis?
Man, I tell you what, Indianapolis is great, man. I'm standing here looking over at Edgerrin James in the Colts Hall of Fame, and I got one of my college teammates next to me, and it's crazy because we used to call him in college, we used to call him Gredgerin James because he ran like him. So it came full circle, man. Like, we went from Division II, playing football. Now he's working, representing players, and here we are in Indianapolis. Man, it couldn't be better, man. This is great.
Okay, TD, I want to know, what have the Titans been up to? What have you been hearing? What have you been sensing? What have you been talking? Give me those scoop from Indianapolis.
Well, I'll tell you this. They have 45 different opportunities to meet with these prospects as far as the formals are concerned. They've used 4 of them on edge rushers. Obviously, Abdul Carter, you got Kyle Kennard. They met with him out of South Carolina the first night that they were out here. You got Shamar Stewart, who, let me tell you something, he's getting ready to blow this place up. I talked to him, and I watched him run. His 10-yard split was 1.51. He told me that he expects to run in the 4.4 range. And doing that at 281 pounds, I understand why the Titans talked to him. But one that came out that I didn't really know that there was interest is Michael Williams, out of Georgia. And you saw the story that came out yesterday about him playing at 60%. If he played at 60% for most of the year and gave you what he gave you, 100%, yeah, you probably would be talking about him in the same breath as Abdul Carter. So that's some of the tea. When you look at the Shedeur Sanders and Cam Ward one, that remains a mystery for them. They're looking forward to meeting with Cam. I know they got to meet with Shedeur, obviously, but to get that sit down with Cam is going to be important for them. So those are some of the things. Mike Paganzi, the other day when he spoke, he talked about how if a team wants to trade up, it's probably going to be for a quarterback, and that means that it's going to cost a little bit more. So he put it out there that they're getting calls, but he let them know it's going to cost you.
TD, was there anything that you took away from the Borgonzi press conference that you could read between the lines on? I mean, I texted somebody with the Titans after his press conference. I said, this guy makes John Robinson look like Sally Jesse Raphael. I mean, every answer that Borgonzi gave was like 5 seconds in length. So I do wonder to that, was there anything that you read in between the lines when it came to Borgonzi?
Well, one thing, he knows how to say a lot, but not really say anything. You know what I mean? So that's kind of what I drew for. I thought it was interesting when I asked him about the arm strength of Shedeur and being able to make up for that with anticipation. He was like, well, I don't see an arm strength being an issue. I thought that was interesting, but it remains the same, right? They're going to build from the trenches, and he reinforced that. So I think that's probably something you could pull from it. And just the idea of having that core being built and dropping the quarterback in there kind of makes you think that they may not go quarterback with number 1, but who knows?
TD, what do you make of the kind of the free agent talk as far as the Titans are concerned? And again, the gossip mill, the rumor mill, etc.
Right. So you look at Trey Smith. He was a guy, obviously, that was connected to the Titans in the right guard position. They're going to tag him. So I don't think that he's going to leave there. And that's especially interesting for the Titans because obviously, he was the guy. So that kind of turns the attention to right guard, Dylan Radins returning. Sam Darnold remains a name that is continuously linked to this team. Obviously, the Matthew Stafford stuff. If the Raiders were to trade for him or the Giants or somebody like that, that could be kind of affect what the Titans have to do as far as the trade up to get that number 1 pick, and being able to move down to get additional ones.
What do people think about Darnold? Do they think he's going to get tagged? We played a cut from Kwesi Adolfo-Mensah, the general manager in Minnesota, in which he talked for 2 minutes about their quarterback situation and Darnold. And I came away from that thinking, this guy just talked for 2 minutes, and I'm not sure I have any idea which way they're going to go in that regard. What is the scuttlebutt down there?
Yeah, last night in Prime 47, I kind of got both sides of it. There were some who felt they're going to tag him. And the idea is that, okay, you could tag him and you still have J.J. McCarthy, but he's on a rookie deal. And you combine the tag and that together, and it's not an astronomical part of what you would say is the fake salary cap, But in real money dollars, it's not a lot of money that they're spending on that position. Like, there's enough to hold both of them. So that's the thought. But then that remaining thing still remains, which is what I had been really big on is okay, a leopard doesn't always change its spots. And you saw what Sam Darnold is in clutch situations, a la the Lions game and the Rams game. So that does cause some hesitation.
What are some of the bigger talking points when it comes to free agency with the Titans? Like last year, they were kind of in the situation it feels like the Patriots are in now, where everyone sees the cap space and they're like, oh, they're going to spend all this money and they're going to, the cap came out yesterday at $279 million, whatever. But the Titans have right now $179 million in cash committed to next year, and they're going to move off of Harold Landry. That's 17.5. I think they're going to move. If you're going to move off of Landry, you're going to move off a Key. So that's adding $25 million right there. So I do wonder, when it comes to the Titans and their aggressiveness in free agency, is there anything you've been able to hear about what they may want to do there?
Yeah, well, talking to some of the Titans folks, outside of Mike Borgonzi at his press conference, they are really going to be selective, and they really mean it when they say, hey, just because a guy we targeted falls off the radar, that doesn't mean we're going to turn to the very next one in line. They're going to find other ways to adjust. So I think that's something to look at. And it's funny, like, we're talking about pass rushers. You got the pass rush doctor, Chuck Smith, over here talking, and that's what you're hearing in the background. But, when you look at that position, as you mentioned, Arden Key being taken out of the picture and Landry too, those guys are gone. You're going to need players. And so that is why I would imagine, they've spent at least four out of their 45, visits with those guys that play that position. You got Josh Sweat. I think, at $19 to $25 million, I think he's kind of priced out of where the Titans will want to go there. So it's going to be selective. But at this point right now, the top guy that I would imagine they would have selected is gone. So what do you do next? And that's Trey Smith.
Mm-hmm. TD with us at the Combine. What is everybody saying when it comes to the Matthew Stafford drama? I mean, like, do they think this is real? Do they think the Giants are real? Do they think the Raiders are real? What's kind of the scuttlebutt there?
There's a belief that the Giants are real. In fact, what I've gotten is that the Giants, their quarterback answer is either trade for Matthew Stafford or move up to one. And that's magic to the Titans' ears, because obviously you want them to be able to bounce down to 3. The Browns are almost certainly taking a quarterback. So if the Giants move up to 1, they grab Shedeur Sanders. The Browns grab Cam Ward, and now you're sitting at 3. You got additional picks, and then you still get the guy who you could have taken at number 1, and people would have been happy with. And that's Abdul Carter.
TD, do you think that you talked about the 45 meetings, you got 4 on edge rushers, you talked about Cam. Do we know if they're committed to a meeting with Cam Ward? And they've already met with Shedeur at the Shrine game, but are they going to meet with Shedeur again at the Combine? What do we know about the remaining meetings?
Oh, they will meet with both of them. If I'm not mistaken, Cam is on the schedule to meet tonight. I got to double up on that. Daryl Colbert, their quarterback coach, I'm waiting to hear back from him in regards to how their meetings are set up. So we'll see, but I'm almost certain that meeting will be tonight. And that's going to be a big one, because from what I understand, Chad Brinker is really big on personality. And that was the thing that really won them over for Shedeur Sanders when, his dad called, Prime called during their meeting in Dallas, at that Shrine Week. They really love the personality. So I want to see how Cam, I don't want to say his personality is abrasive, but his personality is a little more like, yo, man, like, I'm just here to play football. Like, forget all the other stuff. I want to see how that meshes with how they look at things.
Oh, I love that personality. No interest in anything except football. I love it. TD with us at the Combine, 615-737-1025. We'll hit your phones at the end of the hour. TD, I woke up this morning and it was a 5-alarm fire at the Stillman house because of Abdul Carter's injury. We will get TD's thoughts on that next. Stillman and Company, 102.5 The Game.
I don't think it'll ultimately affect his draft status, but the idea that it's just not concerning at all for teams, I don't think that's factual because any big guys, offensive linemen, defensive linemen, players who have heavily leverage below the waist, if there's a foot issue, teams take that very, very seriously because that's often, if you want to talk about like the history of injuries, foot injuries are often the ones that either linger, crop up again, and then ultimately eventually end careers if they are of the variety where it's chronic, where it's recurring.
That was Charles Robinson this morning on Robbie and Joe. And again, when I woke up, I got a great night's sleep last night, which with having an 11-week-old is not something that happens all the time. I got a great night's sleep last night. And I was feeling great about the Titans drafting Abdul Carter with the number 1 overall pick if they ended up not trading the pick. And I woke up this morning to the Adam Schefter tweet sent to me by Ian last night. And the 2 words Ian said in that tweet were, "Oh, no." And boy, that worried me. And then Ryan Porth texted me. And the thing that the 3 of us had in common is that we spent every day for 5 years with Floyd Reese, every day, not on the air, but also off the air. And there was nothing that scared that man more than a foot injury to a pass rusher. And I see a stress reaction, and you hear Charles Robinson in that cut we played say, that's not nothing. And you heard earlier today we played the cut, Solomon Wilcots and Charles Davis talking about how valuable the pro day will be. A stress reaction. TD is with us. TD, it ruined my morning to find out that there was a stress reaction in the foot of Abdul Carter, and add that to the shoulder injury that Abdul Carter already has. I'm worried. What are your thoughts on Abdul Carter's injury? Does it move him on the board, off the board, down the board? I don't think it would move him up the board for you. Down the board, what do you make of the Abdul Carter injury?
You know, honestly, it doesn't move him down the board for me. I think obviously a foot injury, you're out there on your feet, right? And that's how you're making your money essentially. So it's definitely something to be concerned about. But I know the guys, Brent Callaway and the crew at Exos, where he's working out. And this is something, if it was, pre-existing, it's not like he hasn't worked out with it before, hasn't played with it before. So to me, I don't think the pro day is ultimately that important. And frankly, when you look at a guy like Abdul Carter, why do you have to see him run the 3-cone, run the hoops and all that to know that he's a good football player? You know he's a good football player. So really it's going to be about trying to determine, okay, is this an injury that happened in training, or is it something that happened, at some point during the season? And I think that's really where the concern is. And I can't see any way Brent Callaway and that crew would have overlooked any type of foot injury that occurred while he was training. So I don't really have too much concern about that. Obviously, it's something you'll watch, but if I'm him and you saw the report where he's not going to have the surgery, he's just going to, try to wait it out and rest it and still work out. So I think personally, I just wouldn't have him do anything for the time being to give that time to heal.
I'm going to tell you this, though, and I'm not saying you're wrong at all with what you said. The way that, again, I kind of came up, like the old man, and I know it was a different era. He would not draft Abdul Carter if Abdul Carter did not work out. So if Carter didn't do the combine, pro day, or a private workout for him, he would not draft him. And, with Mike Borgonzi, I hear people talk about, well, the Giants have to trade up because they need a quarterback and they're on the clock, and Borgonzi's not as much because he's new. Blow the first pick on somebody injured and see how long it takes before they run you out of town. Here, where everyone gets fired every year, it feels like with the Titans. I was talking to somebody today. I feel like if you're a Titan fan who lived through Javon Curse, where the first 3 years Javon Curse was on a Hall of Fame pace, then he broke his foot, suffered the similar injury. They said it was an 8-week injury. He'll be fine. And he was never a double-digit sack guy again. It makes me sick thinking about what Abdul Carter could be. And it makes me sick thinking about what happened to Javon Curse's career. And it's hard, TD, for me to get over that.
Yeah, well, I'll counter with Javon Curse went to Philly, and he was a pretty impactful player. Now, was he the same record-setting rookie that he was? No, but he was still impactful. So it can be something that you come back from. Obviously, again, it's not an ideal situation. There's no disputing that. But I don't think this team is in position to potentially overlook a guy who could be a truly impactful player. They're not in a position to do that. So if he's there, whether they pick at 1 or 3, I would honestly strongly consider it, and I wouldn't be upset with the pick.
So when it comes to Carter and it comes to the foot injury, I do wonder how much do we believe? You know, I talked to a former general manager today who said that even though Rosenhaus is saying that Carter's going to work out at the pro day, he is skeptical that Carter will work out at the pro day. And he's also very skeptical, this former general manager who told me he would take Abdul Carter number 1. He said he's very skeptical of what Drew Rosenhaus is saying in general when it comes to Abdul Carter and the truth about the foot injury. How much skepticism should we approach with that, knowing that the agent's job is to represent the player more so than it is to worry about what's in the best interest of the team?
Hey, listen, you remember a few years ago, Caleb Farley, and the deliverance that he was going to be okay and everything was fine. I wouldn't trust one bit of it. And this is where you have to have your own doctors take a closer look and really examine the records and figure out, okay, where is he with this situation? So no, I wouldn't trust him. That former GM he spoke to was 100% right. But at the same time, I mean, if the guy could play, he could play. So let's see what happens and see what your reports, what your examinations produce.
You know, I always get into this with Paul. Nick Saban always holds it against his doctors that they didn't clear Drew Brees when he was in Miami. And there's kind of a sentiment around the league with some places where if a team really wants a guy passed on the physical, they'll pass the physical.
Yeah.
And I don't believe in that. I mean, like if my doctors are coming up to me saying, you know, Jared, this is going to be, this is a tough injury to overcome and the re-injury risk is 50%. And, you know, if you take Abdul Carter, you're rolling the dice that he'll be out there. That would really, really, really matter to me. And I do wonder, like, how much we know the access the doctors get at the combine is almost unprecedented for how much access they get to the players physically. I do wonder how much when it comes to Carter and the risk of being the number 1 pick and picking an injured player, I do wonder how much of the doctors they will lean on when it comes to him, because I'm not convinced that they've been leaning on the doctors with the previous regimes, you know, with the Julio Jones and Caleb Farley and, you know, the talk about L'Jarius. I do wonder how much they are truly going to rely on the doctors to set them right on the Carter front, TD.
Yeah, no, you're right. You have to rely on your doctors and you have to trust them. And I think this is where that circle of trust is really established and formed. But I'll tell you this, though, and a lot of people don't know this, Brent Callaway and Zach Woodfin are very good friends. You know, Zach is the head of strength and conditioning for the Titans. Brent, he's in charge of, like I said, Exos in Plano, Texas, where Abdul Carter is working out. So there is a degree of insider informational exchange that will happen. So I think that will help. And they could get the input on firsthand on how his workouts are and really get an understanding of how he was up until the period where this injury was exposed. So that's something else to look at.
Mm-hmm. TD, do we know anything about their interest level in Travis Hunter? You know, we know they're interested in the QBs. We know they're interested in Carter, but we haven't really heard much about them and Hunter.
Yeah, no, I mean, Brian Callahan talked about how unique he is and what he brings to the table, how you would take him as a corner and really see that for what it is and then figure out how you work from there. There's definitely interest because I asked Brian Callahan about the load management that would come with having a two-way player like that, and he said that's something that they discussed. You're not going to waste time discussing that about a player, like how you would handle his workload and handle him as one of your guys if you're not interested in taking him.
What do you make of kind of the divergence in opinions when it comes to these guys? Because on one hand, the Titans say, yeah, we see him as a corner. And then the Browns say, we see him as a receiver.
it's really interesting. And, I asked him straight up, like, what went into your decision to work out mostly as a defensive back? And he's like, oh, there's no decision. I'm doing both. And so, yeah, you're going to have varying opinions, but what he wants to do is play both positions. And to me, I think whichever one you have him hone in on, that's what you're going to be able to, see him blossom at the most. But it's just, if he's a corner, do you draft him as a corner, number one? If he's a receiver, do you draft him as a receiver, number one? I don't know for sure that he's the best at either position, right? But I tell you one thing, I 100% expect him to burn up the track here when he runs. And the other thing I will also say is just seeing him, standing next to him, he's a lot longer than I thought he was. He's a legit 6'1", but his body is longer. His arms are longer. So it'll be interesting seeing, how he could become involved. But, the fact that he is such a good receiver that plays DB, the ball skills are there. So if he is focused only on corner, one thing he's going to do is turn the football over.
TD is with us for the TD Power Hour. Now the trades with the number one pick. What are some of the rumors? What are some of the expectations? We'll do that next with TD. 615-737-1025, which is our phone number. Nashville's best deal this week is from Barrio Burrito Bar in Murfreesboro. At Barrio Burrito Bar, every bite is a celebration of fresh ingredients, vibrant spices, and bold flavors, dancing on your taste buds like a fiesta in your mouth. Head to theGameNashville.com/deals now and get half off a $25 gift card while supplies last. And be sure to tune in to 94.9 The Fan tonight for Vandy women's basketball as the Commodores take on Texas A&M at Memorial Gym with a 6:30 tip-off, and the pregame show will begin at 6:15. Vandy women's basketball presented by Athletes Unlimited Pro Basketball coming to Nashville's Municipal Auditorium now through March 2nd. Go to auprobasketball.com for more details and to purchase tickets.
I did hear yesterday, and you hear all sorts of stuff, and I don't like to traffic in stuff I've heard because I don't know how accurate it is, but I did have somebody tell me that the Cowboys have talked to the Titans about moving up to number 1. Now, I think a lot of teams talk about moving around, and I don't know if you guys have heard that, but yeah, that's a jump, and I don't know what you would have to put into that or whether you'd have to put Micah Parsons into that package if it would go that way, but teams talk all the time. Like, I never get too moved by team talk to, like, they talk all the time. When the report came out a couple of weeks ago, the Steelers called the Jaguars about Trevor Lawrence. I thought, well, yeah, they're looking for a starting quarterback. They're calling around to just see what the market will be. General managers talk to other general managers all the time. And you get, maybe you're thinking about moving to 5. So you want to see what it's going to take to get to number 1. So you can say to the team that's got number 5, this is what number 1 wants. So there's always different explanations for why a team would even do it, assuming it happened. But I did hear, haven't reported, haven't verified that there was a conversation.
Okay, TD, that was Mike Florio on 105.3 The Fan in Dallas saying he's heard the Cowboys have reached out to the Titans about the number 1 pick. I'm like, that's some tea. Again, he's not reporting it. He just has heard that. So I ask you, TD, what are you hearing when it comes to the Titans and the number 1 pick and the trade possibilities as the talking and tampering gets underway in Indianapolis?
Well, that's going to happen. I didn't hear anything about the Cowboys one, and I talked to Todd Archer, who obviously is the ESPN NFL Nation Cowboys reporter, and he didn't have anything along those lines. So who knows? I do know that Mike Berganzi said when I asked him about teams being nosy, he said they've absolutely gotten calls, and why wouldn't they get calls, right? And so when you look at that, he also added that it wasn't anything significant or like any actual deals that even started to materialize, but it was just feelers. So that's what you're going to get, man. And oh man, Landon Jackson, Arkansas is running at 40 here. I got to see what he runs. He jumped 40. I don't mean to get off track, but he had a 40-inch vertical at 265 pounds. Unofficial just now 469. But yeah, the trades obviously right now at this point it's all conversational, and it's kind of like the foundation being set. And I remember actually 2016 when the Eagles moved up twice to be able to get Carson Wentz at 2. One of the first trades that they did to move up to 8 started to materialize at the combine. So, like the foundation was laid for it, just the initial conversation. So there you go right there. So it wasn't surprising.
TD, what do you make of when it comes to the Titans and trading the pick? All the smoke around the Giants. I mean, it seems obvious they want Matthew Stafford. It seems like there's a lot of smoke there as far as Stafford and the Rams, and then now Stafford and the Raiders. And so I do wonder, is the trading up for number 1, is that a fallback if they don't get Stafford from the scuttlebutt down there? What's kind of the thought on the Giants?
Right. Again, that's something that I heard was their plan. Matthew Stafford or trading up to 1. So that lets you know right there. I've already said multiple times how Brian Daboll follows Shedeur Sanders all over the place at the Shrine Week and, during practice. And then even how, they ducked into a side room and had a meeting there. They were one of the first teams to meet with him there. So obviously there's interest, you know what I mean? So we'll see what happens there. I wouldn't be surprised if they at least made an offer to move up to 1 and get Shedeur.
Do you see the Raiders and the Jets as realistic trade partners, or do you think that's too far for the Titans to go back?
Very, very funny you mentioned the Jets. I had 2 Jets people tell me that there could be interest there. So that is something to look at. The Jets are what, 6, 7? I think it is 6, 7. Okay. So that is kind of goes hand in hand with their Michael Williams interest. So now you could get a guy who you feel is an impactful pass rusher who, as mentioned, played at 60% last year. From my understanding, there's a belief that you have Abdul Carter, little gap, Michael Williams, big gap, and everybody else. So definitely consider that.
What about the Raiders? It seems like, I don't know about you, I don't buy that Brady and Stafford just happened to run into each other skiing in Montana. Just like I never bought that Stafford and McVay just happened to run into each other in Cabo. Though I will say this, I did run into Brian Callahan vacationing last year at the same place I was vacationing. So maybe it's more common than you think. But I ask this, which is, What do we make of the Raiders as a trade partner at 6? And what do we make of the Raiders in their pursuit of Stafford?
A trade partner at 6, right? If Jackson Dart was being endorsed by Tom Brady, like that would be all over the place, right?
Mm-hmm.
The one quarterback in this draft class that gets a ring endorsement, has a personal relationship with Tom Brady.
Shedeur Sanders.
The bingo. It's just funny how that is just kind of swept aside and nobody's really talking about that. And you know the saying, it takes one to know one. Tom Brady put his name on Shedeur Sanders, so I'll go with that endorsement. And that being said, obviously, I would imagine that he's someone that they will want. You know what I mean? Because of that relationship. So yeah, the Matthew Stafford one. I don't know that Sam Darnold's not in that picture. Also, when you talk about the veterans there. So honestly, I haven't heard anything either way on those. So that's one of those. Just have to kind of wait and see.
TD, what are the Rams going to do at quarterback if they end up trading Stafford? I saw Diana Rossini put out there that she said the Rams feel comfortable with Jimmy Garoppolo. Bull crap. Jimmy Garoppolo, I'll be stunned if he's their quarterback. I'm afraid that the Rams are going to trade Stafford to the Giants because they want to sign Sam Darnold, and then I'm going to lose my top trade partner, the Giants, and I'm going to lose my quarterback, Sam Darnold.
Yeah, that'll really, be the equivalent of canceling Christmas for you, right?
But that and Abdul Carter's hurt.
Yeah, like it's a bunch of lose-lose situations. And it's just kind of like, okay, well, you better hope the Raiders, go ahead and get Shedeur, in a trade up. So I don't know, man. It's just there's a lot going on there, and it's kind of like a carousel. Maybe the Rams, Aaron Rodgers, right? Maybe they do that. I don't know. I just don't even understand the whole thing with allowing anything to come out about Matthew Stafford. And I mean, possibly it's one of those deals where like, hey, look, see your value, go ahead and see where other teams value you contract wise and come back to us, and we could either match it or exceed it.
TD is with us. I want to leave plenty of time for you to get your calls in and your texts in for TD at 615-737-1025. That's 615-737-1025. We will hit those questions for TD next here on the program. TD is live in Indianapolis. Again, our coverage at the Combine presented by the New Cumberland Nationals resort-style community overlooking downtown on the Cumberland River and Boom Boss Pizza. Go try their award-winning pizzas at one of their locations in East Nashville, Spring Hill, and Murfreesboro. Boom Boss Pizza and Watch Bar. Eat, drink, and watch. And be sure to tune into 93.3 Totally Hits Nashville tonight for MTSU men's basketball as the Blue Raiders take on New Mexico State. Tip-off at 8, pregame at 7:30. And coverage also available on the Totally Hits Nashville app and at totallyhitsnashville.com. Stillman and Company TD Power Hour, Teron Davenport live in Indianapolis at the Combine as the pass rushers are working out right now. James Pierce with a 4.50 40 at the Combine. TD, do you have a thought, or do you want to go right to the people?
We'll go right to the people. But, quick thought. James Pierce at 32 to the Eagles. Howie Roseman does it again. And watch it.
I mean, I think with a 4.5 40, he may be gone before 32, but we shall see. Cedric, our phone line driven by WilsonCountyHunter.com. Cedric's going to kick us off. Cedric, you're on with TD. Go ahead.
So what up, TD? Hey, Stillman, you and your ski mask, bro. You tried to hijack my argument yesterday, bro. 61%, not 51%, but we'll talk about that later. Hey, TD, what do you think, man, about the best player to draft, in my opinion, the corner from Michigan, man? We trade back, get Justin Fields. I think dude is an absolute dog. Best corner, probably the best football player in the draft, man. Speak on that. And Matthew Stafford, if I am a GM of the Minnesota Vikings, I'm pushing all the chips to the table to go get Matthew Stafford, man. They got $63 million into the cap. Holla, my boy.
Oh, Matthew Stafford. Listen, that would be an interesting one. Will Johnson, though, I talked to him a little bit today. He's not working out here. He's going to wait till pro day. But one thing about him is you're talking about length, and you're talking about the movement skills at that length. It's really good, and he's got a compress. He could play zone. I don't know that the Titans would be ideal for him just because you already have, a good group of corners. In a move back, I think it would be more Michael Williams or Ted McMillan, that type of look if they were to move back. But I get what you're saying, going for a top-notch player. I think when you look at him, a lot of it was like prospect fatigue, and you forgot about him, right? So he's still, to me, the best corner in this draft. Now, he's not my favorite corner. We're talking about Quincy Riley when we go that route. But I still think Will Johnson's a good one.
Quincy Riley can play. I do wonder a couple names with Will Johnson that we don't talk about because the Titans are at 1, but if they trade back, we never talk about Mason Graham. We never talk about Will Campbell, TD.
Yeah, well, listen, Mason Graham, you want to have a D-tackle rotation. Good Lord. That'll be something, right? And even if you have all three of them on the field at the same time, because, Jeff, you could bump him out to 3 or 5 techniques. So you can do that. Will Campbell, look, anytime somebody mentions Will Campbell, it takes me to my guy, and that's Kyle Kennard. Go back and watch the LSU film, man. Kyle Kennard, I'm not going to say he dominated him, but he had his way. And I think that's a testament to him. And he's the guy, like I said, the Titans talked to, the first night that they were out here, and he's someone at 35. I could definitely see them. If they don't get a pass rusher in the top, they grab a guy like him, and you'll be happy at the top of the second round.
One texter says, TD, what's the feeling there about how the league and your counterparts see Mike Borgonzi? Do they think the league feels like the Titans made the right hire at GM?
Yes, that's a consensus. I haven't had one person tell me that they think the Titans, didn't hit a home run with it. Now, they always prerequisite like, Rand should have got another chance, and make of that what you will. But definitely Borgonzi coming in. He's endorsed by every single person I've talked to. Honestly, I'll endorse him too. The conversations I've had with him, just off, not in the scrum or whatever, 2 or 3 of those, and I came away impressed. I love the way, and a lot of what I've gotten back is that they love the way, he's about building from the trenches. Now, for me personally, what I really like about him is just the fact that when he looks at a prospect, it's not as much of a what can he do side of things as it is what can he do and how can we showcase and enhance that.
Cameron says, TD, I am nervous about Abdul Carter. 2 major injuries after 1 season of high-level production. When do we get worried about him and maybe label him as injury prone?
Yeah, I wouldn't start with that. I mean, it's a contact sport. You're going to have injuries. If it does continue, extensively over the next couple of years or whatnot, then you could approach that. But these are things that come with the game. So I don't think it's going to be an issue ongoing. I don't put the injury prone on him.
When do we start to worry about that? Because I mean, like the Titans for years, whether it was Corey Davis, whether it was Jeffrey Simmons, whether it was Caleb Farley, all different extents, but had injuries when they were drafted. And every time, oh, no, it'll be fine. It'll be fine. And again, Jeffrey Simmons, I wouldn't say he's injury prone. I mean, he does end up on the injury report, but I think he plays enough. But then there are some dudes that just, for whatever reason, Treylon Burks just cannot stay healthy. When does that become kind of a fear of a draft prospect?
Well, I'll take it back to something I said earlier about Brent Callaway and Zach Woodfin having a tie. When I went to visit Exos, Brent, he took me through and he showed me different devices and different things that they do. And one of the things that they do is they measure the body mass versus the body composition. And now what that means is you're looking at a guy's skeletal structure, and you're also comparing that to how much he's able to hold, like this, as far as like his body, the mass. And sometimes there's an imbalance there. I personally think that that's what's going on with Treylon Burks. I don't know for sure, and that's just looking at the injuries and how they continue to pile up. I think that's the case, but that's one way that you kind of figure it out. And look, some injuries are able to be returned from a little bit more likely, like the ACL with Simmons, but others like the back with Caleb Farley, they're an issue, right? And it's chronic. So it just depends on the injury, and it's got to be a case by case thing.
David in Arkansas says, TD, do you think Landon Jackson will be available in the second round? And how would you feel if the Titans doubled up with Abdul Carter and Landon Jackson to beef up the defense?
Yeah, listen, Landon Jackson's a guy I really like, and he's someone that, he ran a 4.68 and 4.69 40-inch vertical. He had 2 sacks in the Senior Bowl game, and he had a really good week. He's someone that, the length is there. I think Max Crosby, that's actually when I asked him about that comparison, he liked it, and he said that is somebody that he watches and he's kind of patterned his game after. So, yeah, I mean, that would be good to double up there, but you can't forget about some of these other positions. They need playmakers on offense. They need, a quarterback, right? So there's a lot of needs. I don't know about doubling up in the first and second on the same thing.
What do you make about the fact that Mike Borgonzi's done a bunch of interviews and has talked about the depth at edge rusher, and then the next day it comes out that the Titans have given Harold Landry permission to seek a trade, and I've been told the Titans are moving on from Landry one way or another. If they don't end up working out a trade, they're probably going to release him. I mean, I do kind of feel like those two things do go hand in hand.
Yeah, it definitely goes hand in hand, and it just kind of increases the importance of a guy like Abdul Carter, and hey, look, they've had 4 that I know of. It's probably more meetings with, edge guys. So it's clearly an area they're going to invest in, and we'll see what happens. I'm curious how this all is going to work out. Imagine, Mike Florio, he said, Micah Parsons worked into a trade for the #1 pick. Imagine that. I'm not saying that it happened, but imagine 6, at the Raiders bumping up to 1 and Max Crosby being put in that deal. Like, there are all kinds of things that are in play here. And that's why I think this is one of the more fun drafts that I've seen in recent years, because you're not coming into it and you're like, oh, well, so-and-so is going to be the first round pick. You have no clue.
TD, we need to know your thoughts on Ian Rappaport versus Jordan Schultz.
It's funny. I saw Jordan right before that happened. And look, man, Rappaport, he took the coward route, right? You no need to call NFL security and
that's
all
what
that
I
stuff.
thought.
Yeah. I mean, you have a look. You and I have had run-ins, right? But
sure,
we're like, okay, yeah, we had a
but
disagreement.
we're not going to call the cops.
Yeah. At the end of the day, we hug and we love each other again. Like, that's what happens. Like, you're gonna have. But I do think that Rappaport kind of needled him too much. There were unnecessary tweets, and kind of gets into one of those unit measuring contests that you don't need to have. It's not necessary.
TD, well said. I thought that was very. Trying to think of the right way to say this. Felt like that was very educational from you, as always. TD, it's your favorite time of the year. Enjoy the combine.
Yeah.
Enough yapping with us. Good to see you, as always.
All right, for sure. Hey, watch Savion Williams when he runs, man. TCU receiver. He's working out as a running back, too. Keep an eye on him.
There you go. TD letting us know Xavion Williams out of TCU. If you want Cam Ward with the #1 pick and you want me to entertain it, today is a good day for you. We'll get to that next. Stillman and Company, 102.5 The Game. Stillman and Company, 102.5, 106.3 The Game, streaming live on Twitter, Twitch, YouTube, and Facebook Live. We are live from the Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Air Conditioning Game Nashville Studios, and we are presented by the Southern Bank of Tennessee. We are live at Bridgestone Arena, Predators and Jets tonight. Hockey Fights Cancer, 7 o'clock right here on 102.5 The Game. Max will have the pregame in less than an hour. So if you are one of these people that absolutely loves Cam Ward, and they exist, today's a good day for you. Because I feel like for the last 2 months, it's been, no, Jared, we've got to take Cam Ward. Jared, you don't understand. Jared, all these draft guys are wrong. Jared, oh my God, Cam Ward, he's the man. And I have watched Cam Ward's tape. And I have said, when watching his tape, he is a first-round pick. Like, the talent is legit. Now, he's not a great passer. He's not elite in anything. He's not an elite athlete. He's not an elite passer. I'm not sure that he can really read the blitz and diagnose what the defense is doing to him, because at Miami, the tape says either he couldn't diagnose the blitz or he didn't care to diagnose the blitz, both of which are not options when it comes to the NFL. But for the most part, I have not considered Cam Ward the option. As you know, I'm a Sam Darnold guy. I want to sign Sam Darnold. I want to sign him to a real contract, and I want to get a backup quarterback in here to sit behind him, and that's that. But you always have to have a plan B. When it comes to the draft, if the Titans use the first overall pick, which let's not kid ourselves, in order to get Cam Ward, you have to use the first overall pick on him. I've been an Abdul Carter guy. But today's a good day for you. Because unlike everybody else, I'm not one of these, it'll be fine, there's no reason to worry, there's nothing to discuss here. I'm not one of those guys. Yesterday, we had to make contingency plans because if the Giants acquire Matthew Stafford, which is what they want, and it feels like a distinct possibility, that does change the trade market. Because right now, the Giants at 3 are the team that I circle. And I say, oh, would it be nice to get a second-round pick from the Giants, get a first-rounder next year, something like that in a deal with the Giants? Boy, that would be nice. Circle them, move back there, add some players, move, etc. But if Matthew Stafford becomes a Giant, they're out. The Jets and the Raiders, to get to 6 and 7, would drop you out of the elite prospects in this draft. And again, the asking price would probably be so high to get to number 1, it'd be hard for me to believe that they would do it unless they call me. When it comes to Sam Darnold, Minnesota could tag him. He could stay there. The Rams, if they trade Matthew Stafford, they could sign Sam Darnold. The Raiders at 6, they've been linked to Sam Darnold. It's all a possibility. And if that happens, if Stafford gets traded to the Giants and now they're gone as a trade partner, if Darnold goes to the Raiders, so now they're out as a potential trade partner, if the Jets are not interested in meeting your asking price to move up, so Darnold's gone and Stafford's gone, and now it's Daniel Jones, and I have to deal with Abdul Carter's injury, I would strongly consider Cam Ward with the first pick. And I hate saying this, because, again, I do think Cam Ward is a first-round pick. I just don't think he's the first overall pick. And while different drafts yield different results, I have a hard time drafting a guy who I'm not sure will ever be good enough from a talent standpoint to beat Mahomes or to beat Josh Allen or to beat, and some people will say, well, they thought that about Mahomes. And you're right. And Andy Reid coached them up, and they had the best receiver and the best tight end and a great left tackle and all these things when he went in there with a great plan. And so you need that. Plus, Ward would have to be better than everybody thinks, including Kansas City, who probably thought he was good, but probably didn't think he was greatest of all time good. You would need a plan the way the Bills developed Josh Allen. Your coach is on the hot seat right now. But I look at the board and I think about, okay, if all else fails, I can sign Daniel Jones, which I don't love. I can sign Daniel Jones, and I can draft Abdul Carter. But now with the news that Abdul Carter is not only dealing with the shoulder injury, but has a stress reaction in his foot, it makes it hard for me to say, okay, well, now let's take Abdul Carter first overall. It may not be a big deal to you, but I was raised by Floyd Reese, the winningest general manager in the history of the Tennessee Titans. So was Ian. So was Ryan Porth. Ian texted me last night when the news about Abdul Carter came out with 2 words. Oh, no. Ryan Porth texted me this morning. He couldn't believe it either. That was the scariest injury when it came to the GM. So now we have to look past Abdul Carter. Again, I would love to sign Sam Darnold. I would love to draft Abdul Carter and go on with my day. But I can't draft an injured player. And Abdul Carter has 2 injuries right now. So let's set him to the side. That leaves me with Travis Hunter. I don't know if I can take a corner with the first overall pick. And then who else? Will Campbell, a tackle who we'll see when it measures out, but supposedly doesn't have the arms long enough to play tackle in the NFL. I've already done that. They're not going to take that with the number 1 pick. So I'm now getting to the point to where I'm like, hey, if all else fails, I would take Cam Ward. I would take Cam Ward. I do think Cam Ward is a better quarterback or profiles to be a better quarterback than Daniel Jones. I think Cam Ward and the risk you take by taking Cam Ward is a better risk to take than Will Campbell or Mason Graham or Will Johnson or Travis Hunter as a corner. I hate it, but you have to have a quarterback. This is a weak draft without the high-end elite talents. There's not a Calvin Johnson in this year's draft that you can take and say, okay, pass on the quarterback. So I wasn't considering Cam Ward first overall. I really wasn't. Again, and I was figuring that he'd be off the board because I think Cleveland at 2 is going to pick Cam Ward. I think Cam Ward is clearly, in the NFL's eyes, QB1. So I think Cam Ward is off the board by the 2nd pick. So the only chance you'd have to take him is first overall, and I'd take Abdul Carter over him. But now with the Carter injury, and now with the Stafford smoke eliminating the Giants as a potential trade partner, now with the possibility that Darnold could be in LA or Las Vegas, I think Cam Ward has entered the discussion. I kind of have to think about it as a real possibility because without Abdul Carter, it's either a corner, a DT, or a tackle who might be a guard. And if I feel like, well, I don't know if Cam Ward's good enough to be a number 1 overall pick quarterback, I certainly could not take a tackle who's actually a guard. So if you're one of these Cam Ward truthers, today is a good day for you because I'm considering it. 615-737-1025, which is our phone number, 615-737-1025. There will be a strong group of you that do not think Abdul Carter's injuries are that serious for me to be discussing taking him off the board. I completely disagree. We'll get to that next. Stillman & Company, 102.5 The Game.
Look, as soon as we heard the news, what was the buzz around this place? Was this going to hurt his draft stock? Is this going to damage where he's going to be picked? Is this going to, immediately any injury that pops up, people wonder, will that affect this young man? You said so many great words about how you have to treat injuries and how you have to have some patience with people. Apparently, we don't have to worry about patience because if he's able to work out March 20th, then they think this thing is fast healing, no issues, the whole deal. And Kool-Aid had the same thing where essentially he came back like a month later and did his pro day, I believe.
There you go.
Went on from there. So that is fantastic news for Abdul Carter and fantastic news for all of us who like football and want to see this young man get his best opportunity.
Excellent player. There's no doubt about it. I mean, people are going to want to see him jam that foot in the ground, turn, move, and pivot, and swing around and do all the movement, all the athletic moves that you would expect to see from him. That's, what they say, seeing is believing. And that's pretty much how things work out.
There you go. That was Solomon Wilcots and Charles Davis this morning. Again, the news. Abdul Carter has a stress reaction in his foot. That goes with the shoulder injury that he already suffered that we already knew about. So that's 2 injuries. Now, Drew Rosenhaus's agent came out and said he will participate in his March 20th pro day, which would lead you to believe that Abdul Carter is doing better. Now, I will hear a lot of people tell me, oh, this is not a big deal. I talked to a physical therapist doctor who does see NFL players, who said if surgery is being discussed, there's probably a disagreement somewhere as to whether it's a stress reaction or a stress fracture. The agents will put out stress reaction to you all because it's less severe. I don't know for him why he would do pro day unless they felt like it would really affect his draft stock. If it really is a stress reaction, then it is risky to make it worse. Regardless, the injury is not something that should affect him long-term, whether he has the surgery or not. So let me just say this. There are going to be a lot of people that say, it's not a big deal, Jared. It's a stress reaction. He'll heal with time. They already said he's going to do his pro day. It's not a big deal. I already talked to one former general manager today who says just because they say he's going to do his pro day doesn't mean he's going to do his pro day, and that Drew Rosenhaus, the agent, is the last person that they would trust as far as the info is concerned. And again, when it comes to Abdul Carter, and for the people that will say it's not that big of a deal, TD today said it's not that big of a deal. Joe said today it's not that big of a deal. To me, it is that big of a deal. And here's why. Because the guy that I did this show with for 5 years, who is the all-time winningest general manager in the history of the Tennessee Titans, would have absolutely considered it a big deal. And before you tell me, oh, well, he doesn't know, you all did that in the past. You all did that when it came to the right tackle position, and I told you the right tackle story. You all did that when it came to L'Jarius Sneed's knees. You all did that when you told me Julio Jones was going to be great. Remember when they signed Jadeveon Clowney and the old man said, I wouldn't do that? Yeah, I'd say that was a pretty good idea. And I will tell you one thing that is absolutely a fact. If Abdul Carter, who is not working out at the combine because of the shoulder injury, if Abdul Carter did not work out at his pro day, just like that doctor that said to me, I don't know why he would do the pro day unless it would really affect his draft stock. Well, I'm going to tell you right now, if the old man had the number 1 pick in the NFL draft and Abdul Carter did not work out at his pro day and he did not work out at the combine and he did not do a private workout for the Titans, then he would not be the pick as far as the Tennessee Titans are concerned. Again, right now, Abdul Carter has 2 injuries. He has a shoulder injury. He's got a foot injury. And foot injuries for pass rushers are a big deal. Javon Curse, in his first 3 years with the Titans, averaged 12 sacks a season. He forced 15 fumbles in his first 3 years in the NFL. Defensive Rookie of the Year, 3-time Pro Bowler. And the rest of his career, he was an average defensive end. He was headed to Canton. Had the stress reaction. They said, the Titans initially said when he got hurt that it was a foot sprain. It was supposed to be an 8-week injury. He was going to be fine. He was not. I remember the drama about whether or not they were going to franchise tag Javon Curse and how Floyd wanted to scan his foot, and Drew Rosenhaus, the agent for Javon Curse, would not let them scan that foot. And he ultimately didn't tag him. And I talk about core values when it comes to the old man and how, like, you know, he would do this and he would do that, and this is what I believe in. I don't believe in it when it's convenient. I believe in it when push is coming to shove and you're making a decision about the number 1 pick in the draft. And if this guy's injured and you're taking him and he becomes an injury risk or he becomes half the player that he was before, you're fired. And you should be fired. Just like, look, again, John Robinson, you took the risk on Caleb Farley. Like, you should have known better. So when it comes to Abdul Carter, I'll tell you right now, I'm a lot closer to taking him off the board than I am to what a lot of you guys want to do, which is say, oh, no, it'll be fine. It'll be fine. Because that's how I was raised. Ian, right now, would you be thinking about taking Abdul Carter off the board based off of what we know?
You talking at 1 overall or just completely off the board?
At 1 overall. I mean, obviously, if he's there in the 4th round, go ahead and take him.
I mean, first overall, it would give me some hesitation. Yeah.
This is the team that, again, told us it'll be fine with Corey Davis. It'll be fine with Jeffrey Simmons. It'll be fine with Caleb Farley. It'll be fine with Julio Jones. It'll be fine with L'Jarius Sneed. How many of those have worked out?
There's still a little bit of time here to get some clarification on this Carter situation.
I mean, that's why the pro day is important.
Yeah.
That's why, again, somebody texted me this morning. They said, so are you out on Carter? I said, I'm not out, but I'm concerned. If Carter works out at the pro day and Carter looks like Carter, now we can have a different discussion. But I found it telling that Carter is going to sit there and tell everybody he's going to work out at the pro day. And then the former general manager says to me, I don't know. I don't know if he'd work out at the pro day. And I do laugh about how the former general manager says to me, the last person I trust is Rosenhaus when it comes to that. One texter says, if a quarterback is worth a first-round pick, he is worth the first overall pick. I bet teams that thought Lamar Jackson wasn't a value at that pick regret it. Well, I'd take Lamar if it was 10 spots later. I'm not sure I understand what you're saying. So you're telling me that just because the quarterback is a first-round pick, has a first-round grade, that he's for sure a first overall quarterback?
Well, we've talked about this. The value doesn't matter when it comes to quarterback.
It doesn't matter if you truly believe that that is your franchise quarterback. I do not look at Cam Ward and believe that he is a franchise quarterback, that he is my franchise quarterback. He's got talent. But again, like when we're talking about first round, first overall pick, and is he going to be able to go toe-to-toe with Mahomes? I'm not there. And so, again, to your point about the value, there is something to that. It's like if you take a guy 7th overall as compared to 1st overall, like you're still committing yourself to that guy. Rand Carthon got one crack at quarterback. It was Levis. And, it was a value pick, and he got fired. But I couldn't take him with the 1st overall pick. Couldn't do it. Not when there are better players to pick from. Now, with Carter injured, that throws a massive wrench into all of this. One texter said, if he's not a great thrower and he can't read the blitz, according to you, why draft him as a quarterback? Well, because you can teach him how to read the blitz. Or, like I said, maybe he just didn't care to read the blitz. Maybe at Miami, he'd see 7 guys coming. He had 5 guys protecting, but he knew, hey, I'll be able to wiggle away from these 2, and that means somebody's open. Just by basic mathematics, right? Maybe that's what Cam Ward did. And Cam Ward is smart enough that in the NFL, he'll realize I can't do that. I see the blitz. Cam, let's go to the next play. I don't know that stuff yet. And again, he's not a great thrower, but he is a good thrower. He doesn't have great arm talent. He doesn't have the elite arm talent that, say, even a Will Levis has. He does not have. Anthony Richardson had elite skills. elite athleticism. He ran a 4.40. Elite size, elite arm strength. It hasn't translated in the NFL in large part because I believe his team is stupid. Maybe Richardson would have sucked no matter what, but the way the Colts have treated it and are currently treating it, there'd be no way now. But again, the point being that Cam doesn't have those elite potential traits. But he can play quarterback, and I think he can play it in the NFL. One texter says, looking at Carter, I want to know the history of other players that have had the same injuries. Do they normally come back full strength, or do they seem to drop after recovery? That comes from Caleb and Gallatin. Again, if you're a Titan fan and you lived through Javon Curse, you know what Javon was before the foot injury. You know what it was afterwards. And you guys can not listen to me all you want. That's fine. That's your business. You guys didn't listen when it came to right tackle. I've told the right tackle story 1,000 times. And everyone's like, oh, well, Floyd doesn't know. It's different day. Ha, ha, ha. You know, PT's good enough, all that. I'm like, you can keep saying that, but like, I think the old man probably knows better than all of us. This is the single biggest injury that scares him for a defensive player, is a foot injury.
Although it does help that he hasn't had the surgery and hasn't put the screw in there.
Does it?
I mean, if they think it's not that bad where he needs the screw is where, you know, complications were to come from this, I think, sometimes.
I just know that the old man hated the foot injuries.
Yeah.
And they ended up putting the screw in Javon Curse. So I just know, again, the metatarsal, the little bones in the feet, those were freaking scary to him. I mean, I remember being surprised when he was like, oh, yeah, it scared the crap out of me. I'm like, really? The little bones in the feet? Like, oh, God, yes. I mean, listen to Charles Robinson. This was Charles Robinson today with Robbie and Joe. When, again, Joe was like, I don't think this is that big of a deal. And Charles Robinson is like, it's a big deal at that position for NFL teams.
I don't think it'll ultimately affect his draft status, but the idea that it's just not concerning at all for teams, I don't think that's factual because any big guys, offensive linemen, defensive linemen, players who have heavily leverage below the waist, if there's a foot issue, teams take that very, very seriously because that's often, if you want to talk about like the history of injuries, foot injuries are often the ones that either linger, crop up again, and then ultimately eventually end careers if they are of the variety where it's chronic, where it's recurring.
I do love the fact that he's like, I don't think it'll affect his draft stock, but these teams are concerned. If the teams are concerned, it's got a real good shot to affect his draft stock. If Floyd Reese were the general manager of the Tennessee Titans, you bet your ass it would be affecting his draft stock right now. I guarantee it. 615-737-1025. I'm in a good mood, Ian. So let's go ahead and give something away. Be caller 5 right now at 615-737-1025, and you will go be seeing Gary Clark Jr. at the Ryman Auditorium on Thursday, March 6th. Good luck there. Stillman and Company, 1025 The Game. Stillman and Company, we are live at Bridgestone Arena. Predators tonight against the Winnipeg Jets, and we are joined now by former Preds defenseman and current analyst Hal Gill on the program. Harold, good to see you. How was our little vacation, our little break?
It was a good, busy break. I got to see my daughter play at URI playing lacrosse, so I got to see 2 games. That was nice. Did a little skiing.
Did you go?
Anytime you have a family and you're running around with them, it's not much of a break. It's full on.
Did you go skiing with Tom Brady and Matthew Stafford at the?
I did not.
Okay. All right. I want to start with this. Barry Trotz was on the program the other day, and I asked Barry Trotz, I was like, what's the hope for the fans right now? Because the contracts that they signed in the offseason are kind of locked in, and the team seems to be hitting the skids again right now. They can't score. It's kind of the same problems as beginning of the year. I said, where's the hope for the fans? And I think he kind of answered it with hey, this team's going to play hard every night, but this team will also have the ability, if things continue to go this path, to pick high. I guess I would ask you a similar question, kind of where's the hope in this team finding their way out of this, not for this season, but kind of finding their way out of this for next season?
Yeah, I think right now, for the guys on the ice, what I'm looking for is someone to make plays, someone to give us some passion, give us something to talk about, give me something to break down in the first intermission, give me that highlight reel, make a play, go out there. There's a difference as a young player, even as a veteran, when you're trying to win games, you're going out there and you make the safe play, you do the right thing, but you have to do it every play. And I think there's a little more freedom now where you can say, hey, show us what you got. Okay, if you make a mistake, it's okay. You're not costing us the season at this point. I want to see plays being made. I want to see progression in development in the young guys, and I want to see the veterans leading them and showing them this is how you can do it. You have to play the right way. I'm not saying be stupid, but take that chance. Drive wide, try to cut to the middle, dance a guy, make a play, show me something big on the forecheck. So I'm looking for that, and then the rest is up to the brass and the coaches and how they want to move and how they want to tinker and move guys. Trade deadline coming up. Everyone knows whether you're you think you're protected or you're not. I was protected, and hey, we're not going to move you. And then 2 days later, I was packing my bags and I was gone. So everyone knows, every player knows that this time of year, all bets are off. If a good deal comes across the table, they're going to take it. And so, if you're winning, that doesn't happen. If you're losing like this year, anything can happen. So it's a hard time for the players for this year, but the brass and Trotsy they have to figure it out, what they want to go with and how they want to move forward.
I want to ask Hal Gill, the player, a question, which is Barry said that he sat down with the veteran players and said, okay, here's the plan for the future. Are you in or are you out? He said they responded very well to that. The veteran players, I'm guessing Forsberg, Yossi, Soros, Stamkos, Marchessault, Shea, O'Reilly. I'm guessing that's he said, I said, how did they react to that? He said that they reacted well to that. They want to be a part of this. I asked him, if somebody didn't want to be here, do you think that they would tell you that? He said he told them, tell me if you don't want to be here. If you were in that scenario, so it's those guys and Hal Gill, would you tell Barry, hey, if you can move me, go ahead and move me?
Yeah.
Or would you say, no, I want to be a part of this next year because I think we can pull ourselves out of it?
Yeah, I think I was always a guy, this is my team, whatever team I was on. I didn't want to move. I didn't want to get traded. Even if that was a bad team to a cup contender, it just feels weird to ask to join someone else. Now, if it happens, you deal with it and you go make the best of it. That's out of your control. But I always wanted to be a guy that made things work for the team I was on. And I think more importantly, you're looking at these guys and Trotsy's asking them, because if they're not bought in, they're not committed to it, it's not going to work. You have to have the buy-in. And I think when you look at, okay, what's buy-in mean? Well, you're developing your culture now, for next year. And I think it's, obviously work hard is got to be a non-negotiable, right? Like of course you better, like if you're a dog, get off the ice. We don't need you right now. Like we need to build the culture. And if you're not going to compete night in, night out, whether it's win or lose, whatever it is, the compete has to be there. And then from there, I think you're developing the right system, the right way to play, the way that, you try to develop chemistry with young players. Stamkos is playing with Svechkov. They got to work together to make something happen so that they can get a real good look at what this could be next year. And if you're looking at it from that standpoint, then why not stay on this team? Because I do believe, and I'm sure if they want to stay here, they believe that they can build something the next year. So I think it's got to be open and honest. More importantly, honest. It's got to be, call your agent, say, I want to get out of here. You can do that. And today's NHL, they'll find a way to move you. And so you got to be honest with it, because if you're not committed to it, it's not worth it.
Hal Gill with us on the program. I do wonder about the coach in all of this, because I do know that Andrew Burnett's a good coach. I mean, he's won too much, in my opinion, in the NHL. Hasn't won the Cup, but he did win the President's Trophy. He was in the Jack Adams, twice in 3 years, basically. I know he's a good coach.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I don't know if they can bring back the same core group of players after this past season without making some major change. And I think it's easier to change the coach than it is to change the entire roster, given the contracts that are signed. I do wonder, could we be looking at a case, you play for a lot of coaches, where it's good coach, but it's just not clicking?
Yeah. Well, you look at what Paul Maurice, we just saw Florida, he was in Winnipeg, and he said, they're not hearing my voice. And he just walked away.
I felt he kind of quit on the team.
Well, no, because he realized it wasn't, is it quitting or is it just being honest? He's a great coach. I had him in Toronto, and he's a great coach, and he goes on to win a cup in Florida. But he was honest and said, they're not listening. They're not getting my message. So it's time to move. And I think you could have good players, you could have a good coach, you could have a good GM, you could have everything, but it might not jive. And so you have to be honest with what's working, what's not working. Now this year, talking about Bruno, his system, his culture, does that jive with the players and the system that they want to play and the culture that they want to have? Those all have to jive together. And that's why this, final 20-something games is what they need to define. Is this worth moving forward with this coach, with these players, with the culture that they're trying to make together, or is it just not going to be there? And this is their chance to prove it. If they want to stick around and they want to stay here, and Bruno wants to be a part of it, then they have to pull together and make something work. And I'm not even talking about winning games. I'm talking about going out there and saying, okay, this is the way we play. This is how we play together. Is that something we can build off of?
Hal with us. Now I'm going to ask Hal the GM a question, which is,
just for the record, I've never been a GM, Jared, so I can't really answer that. But I'll do my best.
Hal's playing GM. Neither have I, but that never stops me.
Yep. You've been it all, right? Player, GM, coach.
Trust me, there's nobody that empathizes with these positions more than me. Yeah. But I do ask you this, which is, look, we know how Chicago got Patrick Kane, Jonathan Davis. We know how Edmonton got Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl. We know how these teams get these really, really good players. You stink. Yep. That's how you get them. Right now, you have the third best odds in the lottery. That means you could be picking first, second. Means you could be picking, I think, like 12th or something like that. But I do ask the question, which is, if you were the general manager, And I've heard Barry talk about, wanting to see the guys compete every night and wanting to see guys develop and wanting to see. Would you say, you know what, once we trade a couple guys just for assets, let's call up these nobodies, let's put them in there and let's get Justus Annunen some more starts in net. We're not telling the players don't play hard, but we're putting in lineups that can't compete in the NHL. Would you do that if you were the GM?
I don't know why, because I listen to these interviews when you talk with Trotzy. I don't know why you don't understand what he's saying.
I understand what he's saying. I just feel the opposite way.
He will not tank. He does not want players. No one wants players that tank. Now, okay, we're not tanking, but we're putting Svechkov in a first or second line role where he's got to go and play against the big dogs in the NHL. Is that a winning recipe or is that a development recipe? Go out there and play. Show us that you can compete. If it works, awesome. You're looking at, Roman Josi out of the lineup. Which one of these guys can step up and play first D pair minutes or second D pair minutes?
And if I was the coach, 37 Blankenberg, he'd be out there playing Yosi's minutes.
Put him out there and let him play. Okay, that's not tanking. That's saying, hey, we're throwing you a bone here. We want you to compete. If you can win a game and you can show us that you deserve to be here, then that's how we're going forward. But it's not. There's no tank in that. Hey, we're not in a position where we're going to rely on, Forsberg to play 25 minutes. It just doesn't make sense. So where do you put those minutes? And where do you put those younger guys in that position? Tommy Novak has to prove that he's part of this team moving forward. And he does. Go play some minutes and show us. We're not tanking. We want to see you compete and try to win games. And we're going to put you in a hard position. And I think every player says, I want to play in the NHL. I want to play against the best on best. I want to be the best. Well, now's your chance. Go ahead and show us. And if you can't compete, then we all saw it. You know it. We know it. And you can't do it. So you're not part of it for going forward. But, okay, you said you wanted it. Here it is. And you can do it. Then, hey, we got something. And so
I love this.
We might be losing a game, but we're winning in the long run because we're seeing these guys go out and compete. Now, it would be awesome. They want to win because these guys want to show, hey, I got this.
But does GM Hal want to win?
That's the part of the culture. It's not about winning or losing. I just said it's not about win or lose. That does not matter. You want to win.
I like this GM Hal deal.
But it's how you win with which guys you want to win.
You know what, Hal? I like GM Hal Gill.
All right.
That is well said. Because even then, I figured, because if I asked Trotz the question about, well, so do you want to win?
But he says that to you. He
would have said, oh, I want to win.
He's got no quit in his body. But
sure.
he understands the situation, and he wants to put out players and say, hey, here it is. Here's your bone. Go for it. Win. They want to win. He wants those guys to go out and win so he can say, look, I drafted this guy. He's awesome, and he's helping me win. That's what you're looking for. But
Hal's audition was so good, and then he went and messed it up there at the end.
Oh,
Hal
like you
Gill,
were listening.
Hal Gill, as always, Hal, good to see you. And now I am a subscriber to the FanDuel Sports Network on my Prime Video. So I just click, and Hal's right there. It's wonderful.
You got my ugly mug staring right back at you.
Stillman and Company. We continue.
Scaring
102.5 The Game. Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, and Electrical. I love Hiller. They take great care of my home. They can do the same for you. Hiller's been in business since 1990. They are family owned and operated. And Jimmy Hiller was recently named amongst the most admired CEOs because of the way he truly cares for his team and his clients. And I know that because I know Jimmy and I use Hiller. They've got 100% of Happy You'll Be or the service is free. And to learn more, go to happyhiller.com. That's Hiller Plumbing, Heating, Cooling, Electrical. Proud supporters of the Preds, the Vols, and Vandy. Hiller. Call that fish truck today.
It's hockey night in Smashville.
Walk over to Yossi. His one-timer, he scores!
Bringing you the keys to victory and the latest storylines surrounding the Nashville Predators. This is Predators Game Day, now on Stillman and Company.
Predators Game Day is presented by TJ Anderson Homes and Benchmark Realty, online at tjandersonhomes.com. Get your house seen, heard, and sold with TJ Anderson. Tonight, the Predators taking on the Winnipeg Jets. That's right. The Jets come in with a much better record than the Predators at 41-14-3. Predators 20-30-7. Not very good, but a 9.7% chance of the first overall pick, according to Money Puck. Let's hope for the first overall pick. Max has the pregame next. Stillman and Company. We'll see you all tomorrow at 2.